Welcome to another episode of the Paragon Path. This is episode 11, the Harrassin Assassins. We've got 4 deadly guests with us today, and they are ready to tell you how to get the best out of your assassin build, when to use your insubstantial states, the best way to use your insubstantial states, as well as options that you didn't think you might have. Stick around, find out, learn, and enjoy the show. All right, we are live. We are recording. This is episode 11 of the Paragon Path, the Harrassin Assassins. As weird as it sounds, it was really hard to find something that wasn't literally just assassin mixed around that rhymes with assassin. So I went with Harrassin. Have fun. We've got 4 guests with us today to talk about the assassin class, which is going to be interesting. We've got a lot of different ages. Well, actually, most people on here have been playing for a little longer. I think I'm the newest of everyone on this chat. So this will be interesting. So starting off, as always, we're going to introduce everyone. So starting at the top, because my camera is what matters. Magnus, introduce yourself, please.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Sir Magnus Heartseeker out of Polaris. Been playing Amp since 2007. Have a Paragon Assassin and a Paragon Warrior. Definitely really big fan of battle gaming. That's about all I really have.
All right. We're going to move to Morty.
Hi, Mordecai, also Polaris, Ethereal Tides. I'm playing since 2012 technically, but I didn't really get serious about the game until about a few years ago.
We all get serious in our own times and get unserious at other times. Let's go down to Lily with a bunch of titles. Or names. They're not titles, technically. Sure. They're just names.
I don't know. I just let everyone do whatever they want. Sir, Death, Lily, Megatron, Sunshine, Celestial, Kingdom, Sword Knight, Guy, Paragon, and stuff. I'm okay at this game, I guess. Yeah. Oh, no, he's gone again.
All right.
Oh, well.
We'll let him bounce back in. We'll see how this goes.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. I've been here for a few of these, which is awesome. I'm super excited about Assassin specifically. I think we'll have a good time. And I can't wait to dive into all the stuff.
Mm-hmm. We're going to hit some controversial topics near the end here, so this will be fun. And last but not least, Timit. Oh, I don't want to bump my camera.
Yeah, hi, I'm Timit. I play out of Polaris, specifically Mystic Dawn usually. I started the game with Assassin, pretty much. And I guess I got really more into Amped Guard. God, when was the Kingdom push? It's been so long. That was like when I came back and actually got a lot more serious.
60. I don't know. Jamie, you were Prince.
That was like, gosh, I was probably 25.
Is that 2013?
Is that almost?
That sounds close-ish.
Somewhere
probably
in there,
yeah, like 2013 around there, I think.
Yeah.
That's my
2013,
guess.
2014. Yep. And then 2013 probably. Makes sense.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So we've got everybody introduced. Well, we're going to start off by making a rubric for what a Paragon is. Not specifically Assassin, but just what a Paragon is, because that is, if we're asking like, hey, how do you become a Paragon? We got to set some standards, because if we don't give you standards and then tell you to find it, I think it's bullshit. You shouldn't do that. Tell your kingdom members what they're looking for to become a Paragon. So let's start off with Morty on that one.
Start out with me.
Yeah, of course.
I think a difference between a Paragon and just a level 6 player.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I asked that very question when I was trying to become a Paragon, and I got a lot of different answers. And one of the big ones that I thought made the most sense to me was when somebody thinks of that class, they think of you. And so that really pushed me do a lot of playing just Assassin, and I don't know, I molded my character into it to a degree where some people thought that my character was the Assassin character only, and so I don't know, it might have backfired on me a little bit, but
you gotta make a new character now. You can't change it now. We're gonna talk about your unique choices in Assassin later, which will be fun. Timit, what is your difference between a level 6 and a Paragon?
Well, primarily understanding which abilities to use when, knowing your abilities in general interactions, and then through that being a great threat on the field for the specific role of the class.
Very, very controlled. That is like a textbook definition we should probably put in a rule book somewhere. Works very well. Jamie, what about you?
Was that me? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I'm speaking fast.
I got distracted and I was like all excited about the thing. That's pretty much perfect. Let me pull open the rule book and just read what it says. No,
Sorry.
yeah, basically, you are undeniably the class in pretty much every way. Look, ability, knowledge. When you go on the field, you are impactful and you show everybody essentially that next level of play that we expect from the high level of competitiveness that Amp can be. It's not required, obviously, but that's generally, in my mind, what sets everyone apart. Um, Lots of people have come up and asked, what class do I play? And I'm like, well, I play all of them because we can do that. It's what we choose to then excel at that really can set us aside. And Assassin was a class that I really loved and I still love and I think is fantastic. So that would be what I think Paragon is.
It's hard to deny that. Magnus.
Yeah, for me, Paragon, one is a lot of us already hit on the same kind of topic of being that person that is thought of first when you think of, in this case, assassin. Like, who do you think of first in your kingdom? Who do you know is really good at their role? You need to be a force that's dominant on the battlefield and excel on the battlefield with that class in order to get Paragon. But beyond that, Paragon also does have another I would say recommendation or requirement even in our rule books, and that is you got to do your best to be a pillar of knowledge of the class, especially to newer players. You've got to be that knowledgeable person that if a newbie is going to ask questions, it's like, yes, go to this person, like go to Timit, go to myself, go to Mordecai, go to Lily. Like you want to make sure that you are known as somebody that can be approachable and can go to for help, for asking for assistance. Still be a very dominant force on the battlefield, obviously, but there does come that pillar of knowledge portion that I do think often gets missed sometimes, and I think it's also a very important facet of being a Paragon.
Yeah, definitely teaching anybody that'll listen, kind of.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, that is a huge difference between hitting level 6. You just say ding, you hit level 6, there you go, versus really spending the time to get into like all the details of being whichever class you're going for, in this case assassin. Like there's going to be a very big difference of somebody who just hit 6 versus somebody who's been playing assassin for maybe a few years, because they just are going to have that skill experience and know what to do, when to do it.
Yeah, that tactical and strategical experience that you get with, there's no real great way to teach it besides just practice for tactics and strategy, and knowing how to apply your abilities to those scenarios is always going to be a learned experience that is probably something you're going to be in the thick of it when you figure something out.
Exactly. And that's something that's going to apply to every class.
Yeah. In general, most of our first questions apply to basically everyone, but if somebody only watches one episode, you got the answers. Yay. All right. So now that we thought about what it is to be a Paragon, we're going to go back a little bit to what are 3 things you guys wish you knew either when you started playing Assassin or when you started on your Paragon path. Let's start with Lily on this one. You muting yourself again?
Yeah, I was pulling up stuff so I didn't have to jump back and forth. So I was trying to get set up, of course, to avoid what I just did there, and had to seem silly. And then
I have fooled you.
Okay, so now I'm like stuck on myself, but that's probably okay. Okay, so 3 things I wish I had known. So when I started playing, we were still playing under the rule set 7v7, and I wish I had known that Assassin was ass. Assassin. If you were going to start the game and you were brand new, and basically every kid at that time, what was hot? Like it's ninjas and assassins and Naruto and just everything. It's just this thing that everybody's really into, and so they always show up to the game and they're like, I want to play an assassin, and it was always so devastating to be like, it's bad. Go play Barbarian. Barbarian's awesome. That's a great place for you to start. Which is funny how V8 has kind of changed. So then I guess that's what I would have wanted to know when I personally had started right away. But now in V8, I can definitely say play Assassin. Oh, that you want to play an assassin? That's fantastic. You get access to fantastic abilities, especially early, even, right? Like just to double check because it's been a while since I've looked at the levels. Shadow Step twice per life, and you got unlimited assassinate at level 1. And if you have looked apart, you can get a poison weapon. So like you suddenly have access to a ton of things. You get armor, you can get thrown weapons, you can get long weapons, you get shorts. You have access to tons of things. So it's a phenomenal class to start in because you have so many options, but not too many options where it becomes overly complicated, like spellcasters could be, where you're having to remember how to say a whole bunch of extra stuff. And it's a nice mix of martial and verbal right off the bat. And I guess the third thing is basically if you're going to play assassin and you do have access to all of these things, don't underestimate how powerful thrown weapons are. They're very strong, and not enough people use them, especially with V8 and the fact that bounces can count. For people who may be super new, as long as the throwy has stayed in motion, it continues to cause wounds on the things that it hits. So really powerful, especially if you're not necessarily super good at the martial prowess part yet. If you haven't gotten to the fighty skill thing, thrown weapons, everybody can kind of just a thing at somebody and suddenly gain success over other people. So that would be the three things I think right away I would have loved to know. The V7 thing doesn't matter now, but at least that was my experience when I started.
I mean, it's kind of relevant because we've got V9 in the works, so it's coming out sometime. So we've got to be aware of that change coming out, but it's going to be a bit before that happens.
It's wild to think that there is a ton of people who feel that Assassin is an underpowered class and deserves more buffs.
Yeah.
And that is selfishly, okay, sure, buff my class that I'd love to play.
We'll give you a brutal strike. How about that? That'll balance things out, right? That'll make you...
Sure, a lot of power.
Sure, why not? How many chins can I make on this? Like, that's excellent. Get me more things, please. Like, wild, but okay, if that's what's going to happen, I'm okay with it.
I mean, you guys have one of the only like weird martial balance points that you get small throwies as a balancing measure for you to like boost you up. And I find that a little weird because you're already pretty powerful if the rules are all followed. Because if Cursed isn't taken, which we'll talk about later, you guys have one of your largest abilities just falls apart, and that's a huge problem. But you guys have throwies that you can, like, what was it, Jamie? You talked about carrying around 300 of them in a backpack?
Well, so that was that. So that was a MAME, right? Or a day of games, I think.
Something like that.
Basically, I made 300 baseball-sized throwies for my team, and this was still when people wanted to talk about open field, and I was very adamant about, well, no, screw that. I made 300 throwies for my team, not for their team. Like, I'm not about to get hit by baseballs all day. I mean, obviously, they're not baseballs. Kids don't use baseballs as throwies. Use the underwear of Warlord's pack. Ball them up, and then you throw them at people. Make sure they're never washed. This is very important. Hey, Michael taught me this. This is his fault. And they definitely know that they got hit with greatness. No, but really, no, yeah, it's incredible to see what small thrown weapons can do, especially if they're built optimally. There's plenty of different ways to do it, and I don't want to. We could spend a lot of time just talking about how to build equipment, so let's not dive into that. But it is a cool thing that assassins get that lets them be unique over a lot of other classes. So don't be afraid to use them.
Timot's got they look like hockey pucks, like street hockey pucks. And those things are absolutely wicked. Like, you've got a 15 to 20 foot range on those that they're gonna hit. You're gonna feel it even if you're wearing armor. And that is great because you can carry like 30 of them in a little pouch on the side. Like, spellball pouch, you have a throwy pouch and you're just as deadly. It's amazing. It's weird. I'm a little amazed sometimes when people are like, yeah, Assassin needs to be buffed. Just read. Let's go with Timot. What are 3 things you wish you knew when you started playing Assassin?
Oh man. All right. Well, some of them are like interaction abilities.
That works.
So yeah, one of the key things is, well, actually all of them are pretty key things. So coup de grace interaction, where target player's wounded and you start it, and even if they're healed after you start it, they still die.
It's the only spell
Really?
that cares at the beginning.
Yep.
It's just weird.
It's pretty awesome. Also, in conjunction with that, specifically doing that sort of a thing to a warrior to stop their true grit so they don't come back.
Oh.
Because it's spirit.
Yeah, that's mean.
Yep, and then also one of like the key things, especially when you're just, is memorize that charge incant and utilize it when you're in like Shadow Step or something like that. Because if you're just chilling in Shadow Step because you just did something and you don't have like any immediate threats to just pull you out of it, you're pretty much safe from most things in the game. So just using that to quick charge your poison, so then you can just get back and just hit someone in like the arm or their leg where they're not armored in a limb, and then just wounds kill assassinate. Just keeping that up is just really important. Also bounces count, but that's like that's
a throwy projectile mechanical thing people got to remember.
Yeah.
But that charging can't. I mean, you're insubstantial. You're right. You're immune to most of the game. Just charge stuff because you can still do that. And it's basically free time to charge. You can still be annoying and like Morty does, honk his horn and just make people annoyed while still being useful on the field by charging yourself back up and getting, your poisons or whatever back in. Just keep going. That's one to remember. Morty, what is 3 things you wish you knew at the beginning?
Well, 2 of them were already said, but
just hitting on it again.
The power of bounces count is fantastic. When you're indoors and you can throw things off walls, that's kind of cool. Your assassinate, always say assassinate. There's no reason not to, and it has a 20-foot range. So with your throwies, why not?
Yeah,
I don't see enough people do that. And then the third one is, if you read your spell list, it's pretty obvious, but the fact that your escapes are ambulant, that is really nice. So you could be running from somebody and escape, and that's such a cool little feature.
I think that's the trickiest part of starting with Assassin, is that you have to learn Extraordinary and Ambulant right off the bat to figure out like what that means, and then adapt how that changes if you go to a different class, or if you get to your hold person, you're like, wait, it's magical, so now all of those things I've been doing before I can't do. I have to have an open hand, I have to stop, all this other stuff. That's the only like tricky thing I find with Assassin, but it is, you guys got probably more extraordinary things. Maybe I think you have the second most extraordinary things, because I think Scout beats you by 1. Yeah, Scout beats you guys by 1.
Assassin has 4, it looks like. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, and Scout's got 5. They've only got 1 thing that's not extraordinary. But yeah, Ambulant on Shadow Step, Assassinate, Blink,
and Teleport.
Teleport's not.
Teleport says just extraordinary.
Oh, I thought that's what we were talking about. My bad.
No, sorry, it's not ambulant. It is extraordinary. It's not ambulant.
Yeah, right. The teleport one's definitely not.
Yeah, there's move around. You guys are probably the best like mobility class out there. Besides with Blink and Teleport, you have 2 insubstantial movements on top of most of your abilities can be used while moving. So just keep moving. You have a bunch of your abilities are based around being able to do it. Finally, Magnus, what are 3 things you wish you knew at the beginning of either your path or your assassin time?
Yeah, so I'm going to try aiming for a few things that haven't been touched on yet, because a lot of them, I will reiterate bounces count, and this is also going to go with, I chose a bit more of a difficult route to try to achieve Paragon, which was through mainly Bow Assassin. And Bow Assassin, I'd say it was a little bit more difficult, but still very enjoyable. And bounces count with bows. A good thing to keep in mind is you cannot full draw at a person within 20 feet. You can full draw at the ground.
Well, you can full draw at the person, you just can't release the arrow.
Yes, but you can release it at the ground.
Yeah, you can. But that
And-
doesn't stop you from pointing it at their face and drawing all the way back and going, "Please don't make me."
Okay.
The threat.
Don't make me
I,
do this,
I,
God,
I
why,
can't say
please?
I've done that. I can't say I've ever done that, but I've full draw at the ground and bounces, and usually it can sneak under a shield. I've had a few good hits like that.
Mhm.
Usually hits in the stomach or unfortunately sometimes groin area, but happens. I wish I knew how powerful that was though, because there have been plenty of times where people are running at me in my early times, or if I just turned, spun, and shot the ground, I might have gotten away.
Mhm.
I really can't speak on the throwiest bounces count. I suck at throwing things. Like, yeah, I'm not a good throw at all. I carry like 3 throwies on me because I do archery. So another thing that I wish I knew early on, and I mean this is reading the rules and making sure that things are enunciated correctly, is I've seen it on kingdom battlefields, I've seen it on park battlefields, but shadow step is I step into the shadows, and poison is I coat these weapons with a deadly poison, and you'll see some people say I step into shadows, or I coat these weapons with poison.
Yeah.
Or with deadly poison. They skip and they'll leave out these minor parts of the incantation, which if you have somebody listening to you or a reeve there, they can call you on that and say, hey, you didn't do the incantation correctly, and now your shadow step is gone.
It's funny that you say that because I've had the similar problem from people, but they always miss I.
Yeah,
They
that is
never
the
say,
most
"I
missed.
do this" or "I do
Really?
that." They miss I every single time, and that's been the problem here. And generally, my comment to them is like, "Hey, don't forget I. You still did your thing. That's fine. Just
Yeah.
catch I next time, you know." But this is more into the mistake thing, which
Yeah.
I would have talked about. Yeah, you got there before me, but it's crazy how much that happens, and it's interesting that you've had people miss other parts of it
Yeah.
instead of the I part. So I just had to comment. That's crazy.
Well, like
Yeah, for me, I've always hear I step into shadows, and they skip the.
Yeah.
Or with poison, I always hear I coat these weapons with deadly poison, and they skip
it's just it's just a pause basically. Like you're just that's all you need. It doesn't really slow you down that much.
No, it really doesn't. But
Denny talked
and
about,
that's like if you're being very particular too. Like similar to Lily, I've heard people say it and then go, "Hey, it's this. Next time, do it that way."
Mhm.
But
it's all kind of preference on what you're doing. Like in a high competition game like Phoenix League, call people on that, please. If it's something more like a park day, just correct them and let them go. Like I think if we're making people follow our rules to the point that it's no longer fun, we've failed on some level. Yeah.
Well, I mean, absolutely. We have plenty of people that have speech issues or other things like that, and I'm just not holding them to the same standard. I might use it as a teachable moment and encourage them to do the best that they can, but they're still doing the best that they can, and that should be good enough. We're human,
Yeah.
we're not computers.
Yeah.
People are going to mess it up a little bit, you know.
I mean, there's one time that always sticks out in my mind of someone messing up an incant. And it wasn't just messing up an incant. It was completely forgetting the heal incant. So instead, they just decided to hug their friend and say Druid heal for a minute and a half. And that's what they used to heal. And I was like, that is the longest heal in the history of the world. I don't care. That's probably worth it. Like, I can tell you the healing can't, but that was the stupidest time frame I've ever seen for a heal.
hey, if it works, it works.
I mean, sure.
And then third thing, I'm just going to touch on it very lightly here because I have a feeling it's going to end up in the hot takes session of this as well. You get 2 points of armor when you start. It's not worth it because magic armor exists in this game. And
in its
I wish I'd
current
known that.
form.
Yes, I'm talking about rules as written right now.
Right, because there's a proposal to change mend, which will really weaken magic armor.
I'm speaking of it as it is right now.
Yeah. I mean, as it is right now, it's almost not worth having less than 3 points. Like, if you have 3 or less points, almost up to 4, just get magic armor. There's enough of it on the field.
Yeah.
It's almost always ancestral. It's mendable. It's gapless. It weighs nothing. There's a lot of reasons to wear magic armor instead of physical armor, which A, costs money, is heavy, has gaps. We've got to fix that balance someplace.
But I want to look cool.
Okay, look cool. Do that.
That's what the armor's for.
Is it? Is that what it's for? I didn't get cooler armor then.
Well, if we're talking, okay, so, but this is important about since it's a Paragon thing. If you are striving to look like the thing that you're doing, and this was a big part of how I got mine, I never took magical enchantments of the armor variety, and I dressed in a fashion that was almost not memorable. I rolled around essentially as a peasant farmer and role played it in such a way on many occasions in many kingdoms where I wore a very torn and battered blue gambeson with a patchwork leather cloak. Okay, big, like covers my chest all the way down to my the back goes all the way down to my feet. Big leather hood. Wore a face mask and helmet to cover myself there, cover my identity, and hidden weapons on my person along with doing whatever. So then when I would go play battle games, if I went insubstantial, I had gone out of my way to break off branches from bushes to hide behind a bush and tell people they can't see me. I am a bush, insubstantial. And hide behind this thing, and they would be like tracking, going, I'm a bush, leave me alone. I vanished from sight. And I would run away in my bush. And I'm wearing armor, and I would wear leather, and I would hide it under, again, patchwork stuff or torn garb. And I would, sometimes I use those branches as well to brush, to sweep and to farm in the wilderness as part of what I was doing. So yeah, you can magical armor and you can do that, but you're missing an extremely important part of what I think is important for Amtgard and the way that we can role play and the way that you push for Paragon and looking this way. That's great that you're competitive and you take magic armor, but like,
I do have a rebuttal to this.
Yeah, by all means.
So the reason why I prefer the magic armor to fitting assassin is, for me, going assassin. There are two ways I kind of played. One was to look just like the average, like you look like an average person. An average person isn't going to be wearing armor. That's how I see it. Like, they won't have armor on, they won't have whatever on. They're going to be a person, and like still wear Amtgard garb. But I mean, they would be wearing standard Amtgard apparel.
Mm-hmm.
Or when I went to like go into murder mode or whatever, I would, if I knew there was a forest, I would have a ghillie suit.
That ghillie suit.
And I tried a ghillie suit with armor before. I had a gambeson underneath, and that got unbearably hot. Like, unbearably, like, awful. I mean, it was a hot day too, but with that, ghillie suit is still 0 points of armor on its own. But
should have fought for synthetic. 1 point somehow. Pity point. I'm a bush dude. Pity point. Come on.
But with a ghillie suit, with that, I mean, that's another way that you can portray assassin without having points of armor, or looking like the average everyday person without armor on. I think is a good way to be like blending in with crowds, or doing, being a little bit more, in my opinion, stealth and undercover as well. So that's why
that's cool,
another way that you can opt for it.
But
I don't think either of us are wrong. I think your way is perfectly passable as well.
I mean,
and then the last one was when I did my very bad mock-up of interpreting myself as looking like Broton by getting garb that looked like Broton and getting a sash made that looked like his sash, getting all of that, and then going into the dungeon where he was playing with that and just going like, "You're the false one," and using a disguise, if you will.
I mean, that's a way to do it. If you got someone that dresses memorable and it's easy to copy, that it's pretty entertaining in my opinion. Plus, it's just more things to make. Like if you're gonna be a Paragon, there's a lot of times that you either have to purchase or make or somehow fabricate some of this stuff to look like the way you want to look. Especially if you've got a mindset of, I want to look like Naruto, or I want to look like somebody else. I don't know. You have to kind of fabricate that stuff to fit you and get it to work within our game. Because most cosplay things that you get, even if you're like, I'm going to be Naruto, most of those won't hold up in our level of stress and conflict and garb rubbing constantly and just running through the woods. So dressing the part is still a big point. And the armor does help. I mean, our physical armor's got the benefit that beats magic armor over and over again is every time you respawn, it comes back with you at full points. It's all fixed up. It's ready to go. That's a pretty big benefit. But it kind of depends on what's allowed, what's not allowed. If this mend change goes through, how that'll affect it. We'll see how the balance point of magic armor versus physical armor is in the near future. 2 months. Yeah, 2 months. And then we'll have to move on from there, I guess. All right, so everyone's got 3 things. So let's go to some common mistakes to avoid. Let's start with Timot.
Not using assassinate.
Yeah, sounds
Like
like
if
a
you
bad
don't
plan.
use assassinate, like it's just bad for the class. Not saying bounces count on a regular basis with throwing weapons.
Mm-hmm.
You got to remind people of the rules. And like some other people have said here, with just like missing some incant thing. One thing I've noticed people miss a lot is not saying I return to the physical world specifically. Some people might say like I return to the material world or something like that.
Yeah.
But if you don't say that, like you're not leaving insubstantial. It's in the rule book.
Yeah. I think
But what if
material.
you're a material girl in a material? They come out.
I don't know. I've heard some other things, but
Jamie,
like
if you dress up like a Barbie and then use material girl, I will let you come out that way.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. If I dress up in drag and I hide that my identity, I've done this so many times now. Not the drag thing. Well, maybe you never know. You never know what you're doing. More stories. God, I want more stories. I've got assassin stories. I don't want to. Tim, keep going. It'll be my turn eventually. I'll tell an assassin story for you.
But yeah, those are like some of the main items. Like if you're not using assassinate, like as it's been said before, it's a free ability. You can use it anytime that you kill someone. Like you're cursing someone, it takes a lot more to get them back into the game. As long as of course they take it. But
We'll talk about that later, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. And then bounces count. Like it's been said, like you have throwing weapons, you can make them to bounce better.
Mm-hmm.
Certain projectiles will do that, but just making sure people think about that because it's really easy to potentially miss something actually coming in contact with you, not necessarily feeling it. And then if someone is reminded that that's a rule, then they might start thinking about that having hit them. And you're not saying that you hit them. You're just saying that that's a rule and it could have potentially hit them just to remind people. And it's fun to say.
I mean, at least it could throw off their footwork a little bit. If you're throwing stuff near their feet, they go to look down to make sure that bounce doesn't hit them. They move their feet. They might get off their stride. Somebody might get a chance to strike them. Opportunities.
Or if you're spellcasting, you interrupt the spellcast.
Yeah.
That's fun. Crossbows.
Yeah. Crossbows. I mean, so Assassin is one of the ones that crossbow works probably the best
Probably
with.
the best.
Yeah, especially the little one-hand crossbows. If you got a lanyard or something on that, you can just like run in, shoot somebody if you need to, drop it, it hits your hip, pull out another sword, or just like start reloading or whatever, or grab out another weapon. You've got options.
But I guess that's technically could be used in another section here.
A lot of this is going to overlap. A lot of the melee classes aren't as complex, initially complex. They're much more complex when you start getting deep into what they can do. Like the magic classes look surface level complex, but a lot of them do the same stuff. If you look at the melee classes, they surface level look very simple, but once you start diving into what they can and can't do and where they really excel, they start getting really complicated really fast because they're interactions and combos and it's a whole different ball game. Yeah.
I have another thing.
Yeah.
Also, utilizing insub just and not really having a purpose for it, because you'll see people on the field that will just go insub in a place where there's not really any threat to them, and they just stand there for like most of the game. Like if you don't have like a purpose per se, I'd say that that's kind of a mistake that someone might use to know necessarily when to leave an insubstantial state. Because you can also leave your own insubstantial state. It's one of also like the few classes that does that,
Mhm.
aside from, a spellcaster teleporting.
Right. That just makes it. I mean, it's a tactical strategic
Yeah.
ability. You've got to use it where it's useful. If you're just standing off on the side, insubstantial. I mean, I guess in a life pool game, if you're trying to just not affect your team, but then you're also
But
not helping.
and then it's also in the rule, like if you're unnecessarily extending a game by just chilling in a
Right.
state that they might not be able to take you out of, then the game can just be ended or a reef could just call you dead or something. So
Mhm.
at that point in time, you're just wasting the use of it and not really having any benefit to your team or anything.
Yeah.
Which something that you can see, especially with newer assassins.
I mean, it's fun to just go insubstantial.
Yeah,
At
it
the
is.
beginning, you're just
But
like,
like,
I'm invisible. Not quite, but like kind of.
I can be seen and heard, but you can't really affect me in most scenarios.
I'm a ghosty. It's yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun at the early stages. Then you start getting deeper in, and you're realizing like, okay, you got to use it for something. I mean, you guys have a ton of them though, so wasting one doesn't seem like that big of a deal when you have what?
Nope.
5?
6.
2 blinks.
You have 2 of each.
Oh my god.
And then if you have the Cloak of Enigmas, yeah, that one, then you just double it, which is Assassin's the best class for that. But I guess that's another thing to talk about.
That was designed for an assassin to pick and be like, well, I'm gonna go run people over.
It's the best. So much fun.
Dear God. I'll have to do an episode later of like, if there's relics in your kingdom, go get these ones. Because, like, Nunci staff is really useless for anybody besides casters. Because it literally just gives you a casting point. All right. Moving on. Magnus, what are some common mistakes?
You're muted.
Charlie, we can't hear you. There you go.
Yep, nope, I got it. Sorry about that. I did a self mute. So common mistakes to avoid for me. I think some of them. I think Timmy got a good amount of them already. Of always stating things. But I think a big common mistake that I normally see, and ones that I did, is assassinate is immediately upon killing a victim.
Mhm.
Immediately. So if you forget to say it, and 4 or 5, 6 seconds go by, and you go, "Hey, whatever, assassinate." Probably not. If you get behind enemy lines and you kill 2 people in quick succession of each other, 2 or even 3, and you yell, "Hey, assassinate, assassinate," that's probably a little bit more passable.
Mhm.
So that for me is the big thing of it. A mistake that I see sometimes is where people do forget it and then they try to call it out way too late in the game, and it's like, well, no, you lost it, move on. I think that's the biggest one that I especially see for new players. Another one that I do see newer assassins use is with blink. You say I vanish from sight, you could get a 50-foot radius to work with, which is huge.
Mm-hmm.
But that very last line of caster may not end state within 10 feet of a living enemy. That right there is a very important thing to remember. I've seen a few people try to blink out. I've seen a little bit at Parg level. I don't think I've seen it too much at a Kingdom level. But I've seen enough that I think it's worth stating, again, to always make sure that you are outside of 10 feet. A good counterplay to somebody doing blink is to follow them.
Yeah, puppy guard.
Yeah. It sucks when you're the person in it, but it is a tactic that can be used against you and to be aware of.
It was literally pointed out to me last episode that if you're a scout, because your tracking is rechargeable, and you see one of your assassin friends being puppy guarded, just track them out of the state.
Yeah,
it works. It pulls them out. Now they're not stuck.
That is a good that can be a pretty good move if you time that right with the assassin. Then the person that's puppy guarding is probably going to get hit for it and probably die for it. So that's a mistake I don't really call it a mistake. I mean, coming out of it within 10 feet, but I do see people get caught in that puppy guarding scenario when they're first learning assassin.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of just know the timing on when to use your abilities and the right time and place to use it. Like, am I in a position where I can shadow step? Like, am I close enough to allies, or if I oh my god, words, shadow step, because you can't move when you're in shadow step?
Yep.
Or is this a moment where I need to blink? Or do I have time to do a full-on teleport?
Mhm.
Because that's a ×5, not a ×1 like all the others.
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep at it. So I think a mistake that I see is using incorrect timing with all of your mobility spells and cants altogether, really. And that's just something that will come in time, and you're going to make mistakes along the way before you learn how exactly and when exactly to use the right one.
Yeah.
But once you do, that's where you can start to become much more of a threat on the field.
Oh yeah. Morty, what are some common mistakes?
Well, once again, they've already been discussed. I wrote everything down because I forget, and but a big one Magnus was mentioning earlier about making sure you use the right incant. But over here in our area, it's a lot more of them forgetting to say the I part, the I that or I
Mhm.
step, and I don't know how many times I've heard step into the shadows.
Yeah,
Still
it
kill
doesn't
them
work.
anyway. And then this kind of goes and ties into the way that I played the class. But somebody told me a while back ago that you're not a ninja. You can still be seen and heard.
Mm-hmm.
So make the best of it. Um, and so that's kind of why I just make a lot of noise. I'm over here honking my horn or just screaming something out, and you've got there's three opponents paying attention to me. Yeah, that I like that. So I don't know if that's a mistake or not, but the big ones I just wanted to mention were just making sure that you're saying the right incants. Um, yeah, I don't really have anything new to say. Tim had pretty much hit that one to Magnus earlier.
All right, then Jamie, you got any more to finish up?
Oh, Jamie has a lot.
No, I mean, that's the thing, is that we're talking about like the most common mistakes and stuff that we see, and everybody's basically hit them: not using assassinate enough,
Mm-hmm.
or not having it be taken by people. I mean, that's a mistake on both sides of that. I generally say assassinate and you are cursed,
Right.
and then that's enough. It's quick enough where I don't feel like I'm wasting too much time over explaining the ability. They just go, oh, cursed, cool. And then
Mhm.
it's just like that keyword that triggers the I now realize that I am cursed, if they've been playing long enough to understand what the cursed ability even does.
Mhm.
If they're super new and they're like, oh, what does that do? Then I now can get into a dialogue and explain it to them. And that's just a way to get around missing your assassinate. And I over explain this some, even if I'm trying to be fast, because it's really important that it goes off, that if you
Yep.
got assassinate off, you really want this, especially for games where being able to easily be resurrected, you want to make that as challenging as possible, if that's the factor for like winning or losing, like kill count games,
Mhm.
for example.
Oh yeah.
The shadow step and blink goof ups are the same. I mean, right, everybody has that. I return to the physical realm all the time. So much so that I used it when I was, I think, champion last or something, or maybe it was I had to do a Reefs test for people, or no, maybe I was just helping with a Reefs test. Whatever. I was like, just add that. Seriously, what's the incant for coming out of insubstantial? And put in like 4 options. One of them is physical realm, and like a tremendous. I don't have the math. It's been a couple of years now, but it was a ton of people, or that would be the only one they got wrong on the whole test. Is like, okay, so that's pretty common. Just remembering that you can go through walls and stuff
Oh
with your
yeah.
insubstantial, going over terrain effects if your parks play with that. And I think that just comes from it's a common mistake because not enough people are playing with cool terrain or using terrain effects. So the game
Mhm.
designers are missing some neat things. We just kind of, people throw a game together because the people that generally end up running games all the time can get burned out, and then someone else does it and they're maybe
Mhm.
not as experienced, or they're just like, okay, well, screw it, we need something. So, missing that they can do this is pretty cool. Um, yeah, I mean, otherwise we basically hit all the common stuff. I said I would tell a story, so I'm going to tell a story real
Mhm.
quick. And maybe 2 stories. This first one's actually fast. So the last thing that we were at, well, basically big event was the last Spring War, the last event of Amtgard before
Mhm.
COVID. And because I was getting knighted at that event, I was the game objective for one of the games. I said yes because being a good sport. And the goal was to kill me as many times as they could, or something of that nature, or just like they had to get X amount of kills to end the game by
Mhm.
killing me.
Yeah.
Well, Assassin's incredibly powerful for not getting killed. Just the ability to use all of these abilities to avoid things is great. But what I did is, because Tiberius came, my squire, for the people who don't know, I dressed him up to look like me, playing assassin. So I put him in my gambeson, I put him in my cloak, I gave him my sash, I gave him my weapons, I gave him my mask, I gave him absolutely all of my stuff. I then dressed as a super buff pirate with a big old bushy beard and a big black wig and a pirate hat and my buff suit and a whole bunch of things. I mean, I was running around looking like a pirate.
It
Very
was
jacked.
great.
It was
And
ridiculous.
so so another example, because this is from the earlier comments about like what you can do for some of this. I game planned to have a decoy to then hide myself in the game that we were playing, and I didn't bother to tell the game designer that I was going to do this. And then I showed up late to the start of the game, which is the extra best part of this thing. So that's the simple part of that story. And then the bow thing, Charlie, I want just a comment. Crossbows, and this is for Tim. I got onto the crossbows because Tim was using them so much. Timmett, sorry, I'll make sure. But enough so where he used them so much that they looked like a blast. And who doesn't want to, so I started blasting, pow, pow. I was running around without bolts in my crossbow. And I would point at people and I would scream at them, "Oh, Jesus Christ, don't make me shoot you!" And I'd be like a foot away from them and then just cower and they could hit me. I had no sword. I didn't have any armor. I just had this crossbow and I'm pointing it at them with nothing in it. People freaked out. Crossbows pointed at their face. I mean, it's cocked, sure, but I'm not going to dry fire, whatever. They don't know. And there's pictures of this, and it basically goes step by step by step of me at the person and going, ah, and then just kind of like walking around to get the objective or whatever. Just crossbows are awesome. So assassins can do really cool things. Damn it. And that's my 2 little stories. I summed them up very quickly. But yeah, nothing else on common mistakes. We've hit pretty much
Yeah.
everything.
I mean, the archers talked about just having an arrow and a bow is sometimes just like a radius shove. No one wants to get close to you. It's the same thing with a crossbow. At the same like if they don't know it's not loaded or they aren't paying attention, most people don't want to get shot. They just don't. Like
No, it sucks. It's never fun to get shot. Well, Amtgard arrows are a little mean.
Yeah.
Can be.
They can be, and
Crossbow
they definitely can. The same thing applies to Bell and Dag if you're shooting. Actually, culturally, archers are looked down upon quite a bit. Whereas for our game, it's generally pole arms on the field, right? Like
Yep.
that's just kind of an interesting
Mhm.
culture shift. And when I go in cross game with them, I just pretty much primarily shoot. I mean, I'll go spar and fight, but like in their games, it's awesome. It's not an assassin thing, but you point an arrow at people and you can shoot them in the face. So they're just like, "Gah," and they cower extra hard if they're not wearing a helmet and stuff like that. So what a cool translation from if you were shooting in this game to go over there and then shoot people in the head. It's very fun.
I just love the idea of running around with a hand crossbow. Like, prove that it shoots once or twice, but then just never load it and just like point it at somebody, wait for them to cower, smack them, assassinate, walk away.
It's pretty mean.
There's
That number-
also.
Go ahead, Tim.
Oh,
Sorry.
I was just gonna say, because how the crossbow rules are, there isn't a minimum distance for them either, because there's no half
Mhm.
draw, so their draw poundage is calculated into the fact that there's no half draw that you can do with them.
Mhm.
So as long as the bolt can leave, you can shoot them at literally point blank. I would be very hesitant to do it at like when you can, like in certain situations, like you need to make sure you're not hitting someone in like the throat. Because that's not legal, and that's not that nobody's gonna have a fun time when that has happened, and I have seen that happen, and it wasn't me firing it, it was someone else, but be very careful if you do that.
It's super dangerous. We had a guy end up with like a broken blood vessel on his eye from getting shot by not my crossbow, not my arrows. I got blamed for it. I was not involved. I just happened to be there, but it was none of my stuff. Okay, none of it. I was not. I was not the shooter. I didn't take this guy out. No JFK stuff. But he he took it to the eye, which sucks. But the amount of times that people, they don't respect the crossbow. They just like walk up on you. They're willing to be right here, and I'm like, please don't make me shoot you this close. I don't want to do it, but I will. Go away. And they're like, I'm gonna get you. I'm like, no, you're not. And I bam and blast them. And I'm like, why? Why did you make me do this to you?
Um,
I tried to warn you, and then just
I thought you're talking Castlemania for a second. Or somebody popped their eye.
no. This is well, I mean, I'm sure it's happened again. Crazy stuff with archery and and arrows and everything. But no, this was at Trader's Gate. One of the players got popped by Herc in the
Jeez.
eye.
One other thing I would say, especially about crossbows, which I guess could be potentially like a mistake to avoid if you
Mhm.
do utilize a crossbow, is commonly with amp guard arrows, they have a bounce. So even though they bounce down off the ground and can hit targets, they can bounce back at you. And having like the back of a crossbow bolt
Oh.
or even like the fletchings bounce back towards you, and if you're not wearing armor or like chainmail or something with like the rings to like do that, like it's not a pleasant experience. Also, if for some reason the head comes around and hits you, then you're still dead if you don't have armor.
Another
It would-
positive for wearing physical armor, I see.
Yeah,
Yep.
there.
But yeah,
Basically
also,
protects you against not strike legal stuff.
yeah, also like if you don't want to wear like a face mask, just having like nice glasses, you can get them pretty inexpensive that are like impact resistant, so you can avoid getting hit in the eyes with things like that and actually having damage dealt
Mm-hmm.
physically. But yeah.
I mean, archery is probably the most dangerous part of our game, just because it's a stick being launched at velocity, and it's not a small velocity, and only one section of it is padded, and the rest of it is still a stick. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of argument, I think it still probably pulls, only because they are more commonplace on the field, right? So
Oh,
they get
yeah.
more field time. Because they get more field time, you get more injuries versus
Right.
archery, which isn't, you know, but that'd be otherwise. I agree with you 150%. Arrows are the most dangerous thing that we do. They just see less field time.
Yeah.
They should definitely be checked more.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Check your arrows.
Like,
every day.
don't put your
Every
fingers
fight.
into the arrowhead. Definitely do it like with a palm, but like definitely make sure you're putting like
Shit,
don't
if they,
like
if they want to do this and they can still get the core and
That's
they don't
true.
get the core there, I still want it gone. Holy crap,
That's
arrows
true.
are scary.
Yeah,
Like,
but you don't want to just like
no, don't damage their
Yeah.
equipment, of course, but like
that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
if you build it right, them doing this doesn't
Yeah.
get you anything anyways. So
Mhm.
like
Be
And
safe.
then making sure that the head doesn't shift a little bit. That's very important because on impact, if it does shift just doing that, it's going to flex, and then you have like the core with your blunt going at an angle where it's not supposed to, and depending on how you stabilize that, that's just
also feel like it flips the tail up more often. It just
Mhm.
bends
Yeah.
and whop.
Yeah.
Hits them with the shaft. But that's
And-
again
yeah.
arrow
Make
construction
safe
thing.
projectiles. We'll talk about that at a future point. We'll have
More
to get just like a whole thing of just like, hey, this is a safe arrow. Here's a bunch of them that aren't. Throw them off the field.
sorry, yeah, tangent, but it's very important,
It is very
especially
important.
the projectile heavy class.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys have bows, which also incorporates crossbows. You've got light throwies, heavy thrown. You can't use the javelins, and you can't use rocks or spell balls.
Eh.
But like, you've got 4 out of the 7. Like, if crossbows and bows are different.
I'm just being goofy about the counting.
I guess there's one other mistake that someone could potentially do that's technically weapon construction related, but would be more affected by the assassin class.
Mhm.
The fact that there's the, I believe it's the 6-inch to 9-inch gap between the heavy and light thrown, that a projectile in that range is not technically legal because it's not within the
Oh,
size requirements
yeah.
for them to make the distinction between the light and heavy thrown. So definitely make sure that your heavy thrown are in that category and light thrown are in that specific category.
I'm
Right.
not sure anybody even checks. Like I would error to say that I don't think anybody even remembers that that's part of the rules. Like now that you bring it up, I remember. It's just never come up. I basically don't ever think about it. But I don't
No.
make it's either
Yeah.
ridiculously big or I'm making baseballs.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting comment, Tim. Very
Yep.
cool.
Yeah. Make your stuff legal. Check the book. So basically, the first section of this entire podcast has been just read the book. Please. It's there for you.
In subsection's huge. Important though.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about this a little bit. We've been like brushing on it, but not quite talking about it. Where does Assassin fit on the battlefield, roles, positioning, meta, and how does that change with size of the field? So like a small field of 20 or less, a medium field of like 40 or less, and then large fields, we're talking kingdom, inner kingdom fields. So Mordecai, where do you see Assassin fitting on the battlefield?
I think that, well, what's the, I can't think of what the term is right now. You're not going to be the main person doing the objective, but you're not going to be hiding in the background either. You're in the middle doing everything else, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I play an insurgent role.
Mhm.
I like to just cause as much chaos as possible, get everybody in the middle part of the game, where it's probably arguably the most of the action is happening, right? Kind of in the center of the play area. And, if I can get 3 people looking at me, then that's 3 less people that's able to do the objective.
Yeah.
So that's where I feel assassins are best played. I mean, I think they could do well depending on what you're doing, but in a bigger game too, because you have those sneaky abilities, you're gonna be able to teleport farther away. You're gonna be able to, do various things in that regard. But yeah, I would still say in the middle would still be where I would want to stay for the most part. I'm being a bigger guy too. I'm not usually gonna run for the objective. I'm gonna kind of stay in the middle or in the background.
You have a very interesting particular style that I know firsthand is very annoying, and you really have to make that decision of like, all right, how many people are we putting on this person that is a danger? We know they're dangerous, but we don't want to take too many people away from the front line or away from the objective because it's one person. Like, if we start putting too many resources to one person, that person is winning because they've taken our resources away from where they need to go and just making us less effective. So
Magnus, go ahead. You finish.
That was it. That was the end of my statement.
Oh, okay. Magnus mentioned earlier about when you're blinking that someone might stay on you, so that you can't come out of it. And again, I feel like, okay, well, that's one less person that can go do the objective.
Right.
It doesn't bother me at all.
If you're making that as like, it depends who's like sitting on you too. Like if for some reason a warlord is sitting on you when you're just like jogging around as an assassin in Blink, unless you're also a warlord, that's probably a better trade. Like,
yeah,
if I was running around and Jamie was following me, I'd say that was a win. I would take that and be like, cool, he's not killing my friends. Yeah. I call that a win.
I'm clearly a threat if you don't have, if you have someone that is a higher grade than me. Yeah, I guess that's the other part of it though, is if there's a person who's only been playing the game for a week or two that's staying on you. Well, I guess they kind of figured that one out, didn't they?
I mean, at that point, they really got that tactic down. They're like, I know I can't swing stick as well as the rest of them, but I can puppy dog that assassin and make him useless for like 10 minutes. Awesome.
But that's why you have a bard or a scout friend to get you out, right?
Yeah, you got to get someone with release, G-release, something, pull you out. Tracking. God, tracking.
I only ever sit on the insubstantial person if they're like my friend and my team is already winning this pretty heavily, because I'll just take it as a breather to hang out and be like, so how about that battle game? Because at that my team's already doing their job and the person's decent enough, right? Like where they could be impactful and shift this, cool. But otherwise I'm just like, hi, hanging out. But assuming that my team's doing well. If they're not doing well, then I'll go do other stuff and help. But that's my only comment to that.
Be efficient. Have fun. Be efficient. Magnus, what are some positions on the battlefield?
All right. So I did mostly as archery bow assassin.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say like you can be a bit more in the back. Uh, I when I do use a bow, I still kind of like to be a little bit closer to the front. Reason why is you can still pull off arrow shots, hit people, and then call assassinate if you're within 20. Uh, with that though, you're also having the half draw. But what you can do is you can full draw at like 22 feet, step in so that you're within 20 feet after that full draw and still get an assassinate because the arrow hasn't struck them yet. So
Or
you
you
can
can
do like a
get
little forward step.
a bard to give you extension through amplification, which is my favorite stupid cheese I've found so far.
So there is that. So you can play a bit more, in the back as an archer, or hitting flanks, getting people like that. The way that I like to do archer as well is to sometimes go on to like the far left, far right, and throw pot shots in at people, get noticed that way. I've gotten a few people, I've tagged a few people that way. Um, a good kind of tactic, and this is what I use sometimes, like when I'm switching from being, ranged going into more of a melee setting, is it's either after I fired my arrows or something like that. I'll casually walk around picking up arrows. I don't have a sword above my head. I'm still very much alive and in the game. And you start picking up arrows, and you start walking past people. I actually have done it at like Mames. I've done it at Keep. I did it at Castlemania, where you just walk around grabbing gear. You look like a dude picking things up, and then when you see an objective or a person, you can drop those arrows and kill them, and then continue on your way collecting arrows if nobody saw you. um, so
Works.
that's how I kind of like. I think Assassin does have a few different areas on the field and metas that can play. You can play as a flanker. You can get behind enemy lines and rush for objectives. I'd say that you wouldn't really be directly in the front. Like I would not expect to see an assassin near a shield wall whatsoever. Or
Yeah, you
if they
don't get
are
a
near the
shield.
shield wall, they're behind the enemy shield wall. But even then, they should be hitting like the spellcasters back there first. But that's kind of where I see assassins falling in.
I mean, it is part of the feature. You don't have a shield. You do have throwies, and
Yep.
Throwies on a front line have always been interesting to me because they're either really useful or really useless depending on how thick their shield wall is. Because if it's only like kind of a weak shield wall, throwies can find those little holes and just pick people off left and right like a polearm kind of does. But if they've got a real good shield wall, now you're just throwing balls at a wall and you're just bouncing them off. So
Yeah.
there's different opportunities everywhere. Jamie, where are some spots the assassin fits on the battlefield?
Yeah. Okay, so it's a little different than these guys, but it's part of the cool part of the class is that, in my opinion, you're the hero, damn it. Whenever you want to be. If you want to be the hero, you're the hero. You have all of the cool kit to go and do what needs to be done. If you want the objective, I can just go get the objective. Who's gonna stop me? I have all the travel powers in the world. Whatever I got to do, I get outnumbered. Cool, I can teleport away. Oh no, it's like a couple of guys. Basically, nobody plays scout because scout's bad, so like it's never a problem. And half the time, the people that do play scout, no offense, sorry to all you, they're not super great. So they will track me out and save me the effort, and I get to murder people because they do it when they're like, teammates have walked past me. They're like, oh, I can't deal with this assassin, so I'm just gonna walk on by him. I get tracked out, and I'm like, sweet, I didn't have to say a word. Pow, 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 pow. And then I just sprint off or gallop away, which is excellently funny. Um, it can do all of that, man. It's a hit and run specialist. It's frontline feasible. It just depends on what you want to do. Again, the projectiles can be really strong. You can be shooting in the mix, which is a lot of fun to just be in the line and kind of weaving around and shooting people. If you ever get in trouble, you can just leave. It's not a big deal. Your line breaks, you can just leave. Whatever, who cares? Like you have all the options in the world. And this is for, again, more like some of this applies to small games. It all applies to large games. You can do whatever you want. Biggest difference between small and large for me is what I bring for the kit. The kit can be so strong that you can ruin somebody or many people's day by playing the class very efficiently. and small games. It's too strong. So my go-to a lot of the time might be I wear my leather cape
Mm-hmm.
and run around with like 6 throwies and a single sword. And I'm just the cape is purely to goof around. It's unrequired. Or I might do offhand single sword and some throwies just to keep the strength of the class down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still gonna get away. Like, oh, they're casting at me. I don't care. Insubstantial, see ya. Whatever. Just tons and tons of options. Gosh, I could touch in depth on a lot of this. I'll say one that's interesting because I don't want to cover too much in this. Oh, actually, I really do want to cover a lot in this. But the front line, uh, kind of feasible thing or hit and run specialist, to me, what that ends up turning into is the same idea with wherever I want to go, I can go. If there's an objective, I can go get it. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
But if my goal is to worry about the objective, other people would say are doing it, and I want to hit this front line pretty hard, it is really, really fun to start working the flank, get some kills, or frustrate the people because they can't get you anyways. You have lots of insubstantials, but you make sure you save at least a blink. Then go get to the flank. Hit the flank, pop, 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 and you insubstantial yourself with blink, and then just walk back to the other side of the flank, which is your teammates, and come out of insubstantial. Then, if you want, teleport yourself behind them again, hit them again, blink yourself again, go back to your teammates and repeat this process until you're basically out of your abilities, and then get someone to give them back, or just take a death, get them back, and repeat this process. You will net. I, I probably net, if I'm really working this, 5 or 10 kills every single time of every instance of my ability to use blink or teleport. So
That's
I
a
will
lot.
get. I mean, again, big games. Like if we're at a spring war, if we're at keep or whatever, it is so stupid strong. But as soon as they start to swing at you, just go insubstantial and leave. If you want, I wear armor. I'm in a kingdom event, so I'm kitted out, so I can take a few hits. But like whatever, like if I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to die or risk getting wounded, I mean, I have my teammates there. But you just pop on the other side of the line. Usually these line fights are only about 10 feet apart maximum, anyways. So you're gonna get your 50 feet. You're gonna go back there. You can come out. They're not gonna chase you through that line. If they do, they're dead
Yeah.
and you're going to get hit a lot. I gotta make sure to put that out there. They are going to hit you many times. You will be insubstantial, and holy cow, you are going to get railed by anyone and everyone because they realized you're there. Just take it like a champ, giggle your way to the other side, and do it again. Like holy cow, is it fun? Tons of kills. The kill potential was nuts. The hard part is from what came up earlier about getting assassinate off with enough quick enough frequency to not be
Mm.
like, because if you're on that run, it's hard to be like pop, pop, so you're just basically just saying assassinate relentlessly and hoping that you triggered it at the right time
Mm-hmm.
and let them sort it out. Most people just take it. It's a little cheesy, but it's not a computer game. That's just too hard. So make sure you get it off. But oh my gosh, I can keep going about their roles. So I'm gonna shut up because not everyone has spoken. But holy cow, just awesome class for everything. Super great.
Be the hero. All right. Timid. Roles,
Yeah.
positions.
So, all right. So it has been touched on a few things, but I do feel that the skirmishing or mid-range role is what it's best at. To be on the sidelines as more of a harasser or jumping across into the enemy lines.
Mm-hmm.
You're more the mid-range when you're utilizing your throwing weapons or bow or crossbow, what have you. But you usually want to stay within that 20-foot range to get assassinate off specifically.
Yes.
It's just that is a really poor piece. Also, all your other abilities are within 20 feet. So, like, if
Mhm.
there's something pesky and you need to, like, take out someone that you just wounded, like a warrior. Otherwise, and then use coup de grace. But otherwise, also, like, spellcasters, specifically healers, taking those out and assassinating them to curse them. They can't just re-res them when they have, like, a crazy resurrection spam with, like, 2 healers and a bard.
Mhm.
So you can shut that down if they don't have that well protected pretty easily, especially with projectiles. And hey, bounces count and crossbow bolts are short. So yeah.
Mhm.
I guess that's most of what I have for that.
Yeah, the assassin's got so much movement, versatility. It's just amazing the amount of options you have with it, especially because you guys do have a majority of the weapon kit. You don't get greats, you don't get flails, you don't get shields, and then you don't get a couple of the projectiles. But that doesn't limit you terribly, especially because like poles basically mean you're on the front line, boards basically mean you're on the front line, and some of the projectiles and flails kind of are just anti-boards. So like that's the only one that would kind of fit in the like we're gonna kill everything kind of role of the assassin. But otherwise, you guys are just about moving, getting where you want to go. You've got a long for either a little shorter down stick or a long stick to get over the top of those shields. You've got your shorts for everything. Of course, carry a bunch of daggers and throwies because throwies are great all the time. And then you've got bows, which constantly people complain bows are overpowered. I don't think they are, for the record. I think they're fine. People just don't wear armor or don't take pro proj, and it's just stupid. You guys are dressed for success, basically. Like, you and warriors are set up in a fashion that there's not many changes we could make to you to make you more like synergistic with yourselves, because you have so much usability within your own abilities to just keep going and never have to worry about, like, if you run out, you go get them back from a bard, pretty much straight up. It's all per lives.
Yep.
It's all per lives or a charge.
It is.
Dear God. I should be giving you guys high fives all the time. Just like, restoration. All right, go.
It's just super, super, super powerful. Like, assassin is great, and it's silly to think that it's not.
Yeah. You guys need more bard friends, because like,
yes,
not enough people with the mindset of I'm going to assist my teammates.
Oh my God.
At least not here. It is dead art. It does not exist. People play bard, sure, but it's almost never for that. It's to be very vocal at other people or to run around in armor and do the fighty thing.
Okay.
Like selfish bards, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know if it's that selfish to just be a verbal bard
right.
at like everybody else. I suppose that's still very strong.
There's a lot of control in CC.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've ran around as Aeolus. I have a bard build called Hype Man, which is a crap ton of amplifications, a bunch of recharge abilities, and then some like shoves to keep people away. And just, I give him kills. I'm just like, here's amplification. You now have a 50-foot, whatever the next 20-foot range spell you had. So he pegs someone in the leg and then coup de grace him from 50 feet away because he can. Like,
oh, that's so
Eldest
fun.
is a pretty good marksman, though.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I mean, even close range, I give you a 20-foot something, whatever. I can give you all your abilities back. We can keep people away. Bards and assassins should be BFFs on those flanks, because like, just picking and choosing who you're gonna fight. The assassin kills them, assassinates them, uses an ability. Bard gives it back. They keep going. Like, damn.
Oh. Speaking on that, there was this one time at Ice Haven where a lot of the warriors didn't have leg armor, and there was a bard on my team, and I just went, I wind skill assassinated with poison, went to the bard, got my poison back, went and killed another person, went back, and I did that repeatedly, and I think it was the next park day or 2 park days afterwards that all the warriors suddenly had leg armor.
I mean, if you've got like a bard hanging behind you, because confidence specifically needs that 10-foot range. They have to be outside the radius of 10 feet of any living enemy. So if you run up, wound kill assassinate someone, step back that really short distance of 10 feet, get the confidence to recharge that poison, put the poison back on and go, you're just, it's a lot of kills.
Yep. It's real great.
That is, yeah. Assassin is just versatile on the field. Okay, so now I want to move on to our next question, because we're already at a little over an hour. The state that makes your class amazing / is your class, the insubstantial state, very commonly in most people's minds is just an escape tactic. How is it more than that? Let's start with Timid on this.
All right. So if I have insubstantial abilities to burn a lot of times, especially if it's like a newer caster I'm going against, or even just like an archer or something like that. So you can just use insub to get towards the person, obviously, as long as like you're using blink or something like that to stay outside of 10 feet of something.
Mm-hmm.
But then drop your insub and then just rush at them. And then if they start casting, I guess you can use like your shadow step just to quick. They're casting something, shadow step. They can't affect you at the moment. They've stuttered. Now because they've broken their casting, which interrupts them, and then you can just leave insub and then kill them. So you can aggressively move across the field to like mess with people, or like you're running toward, or you're aggressing towards someone with a bow or something like that, and they just loose an arrow. Sure, it's a defensive ability, but you can just go insub, take the hit, and keep going. So you're not just like, oh no, I'm about to get hit. You can just keep going at the person, hop into insub and use it more aggressively, or hop in and out of it to interrupt someone trying to specifically cast at you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it uses a lot of your insub abilities, and if you had the Cloak of Enigmas, you just really won't run out. But when you have them to burn and you don't have any other goal, and you just need to like take out like their healers or something like that, works a little bit better in smaller games. Or when you're not getting as much of a focus, but
Mm-hmm.
you can get aggressive with it or teleport. It's really easy just to walk casually across the field. Insubstantial, someone starts aggressing to you, you're like insubstantial, and just I guess hope they don't have someone with like a greater release or
Mm-hmm.
tracking, obviously, depending on what your goal is in that aspect,
I mean, if
or
it's just to annoy
dimensional
someone.
rift. Yeah, or like once you start hearing dimensional rift, you want to definitely leave it as soon as you possibly can. But yeah, it's definitely useful for closing gaps aggressively and not being a target or interrupting someone's casting during that time.
Mm-hmm. It's got opportunities. It's got options to play with, and that's something I want to emphasize because it's often ignored that insubstantial is more than an escape. So Magus, can you speak on that as well?
Yep, there we go. Making sure I was not on mute that time. So for me, a lot of things that Tim covered is how I have seen insubstantial use and how I've used insubstantial as well to use it in an offensive manner. I really do like somebody's casting a spell at you, you go insubstantial. I've seen somewhere they'll actually complete the spell, and it's like, well, there you go, and you pop out and then you shank them,
Mm-hmm.
or I've done ones where I will, I'll do my shadow step and then immediately begin coming right back out, and that can also make people fumble. I've had a few where I've done blink to just use it to get around a line.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll already be running at full speed going the direction I want to go, and the enemies will be facing me or be engaged with another group, and they'll see you run past. So then by the time they catch up, since it's ambulant, just make sure that after you cast it, you've only ran about 50 feet. So, or that as you're running, and by the time you're done with your incantation, you're going to be at that 50-foot mark, and then you can just keep sprinting. So you can use it as a get around this threat.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say it's a little bit more different than an escape because you're using it to push ground, you're using it to gain ground or rush an objective, rather than, oh no, somebody's running at me. So
Right.
those are the ways I've kind of seen it be used more than just an escape. Use it to get around people to continue your assault on things, or get around a front line to get to the nice squishy healers and back, provided that you're not within 10 feet of them. Interrupting spellcasting is always hilarious to me. I dig it. I like doing that.
It's a good way to get
Those
out
are
of it.
I see it being used.
And Morty, what are some ways that my headphones just freaked out a little bit? Morty, what are some ways that insubstantial is more than just an escape? There we go.
A couple of things I had written down, which was already spoken about, was being able to cast or to charge your ability.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was doing, was taking it as other things that you can do other than just escaping. So I have it being able to go through terrain,
Oh yeah.
being able to walk through places that most people can't, or doing the easy way of getting through it. That's wonderful. That's not really an escape. That's more of a bypassing the rule of the terrain, and I really like that. But I think the big thing for me is that insurgents. that you're in an escape mode, you can't get hit, but you're shouting that you're going to escape and probably hit somebody in the back. So then you've got people focused on you,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just don't finish it. So then they stopped to hit you, but I'm still an insub. So you tried swinging at me, and oh well. And then I'll come out of it at a more perfect time, be able to hit them that way. But yeah, that's that's kind of what I got known for, and this will kind of go into one of the last questions about how to keep it fun, because I've actually had people tell me straight up, you are not making this game fun by the way that I play it. Um,
I
sorry,
disagree. I thought it was
I'm not breaking any
hysterical.
rules, so
It
you
is
know, I'm
hysterical.
completely following the rule books. So
I mean, I understand people getting frustrated when they don't realize that you're either stutter casting or false casting or whatever you want to call it. But there's like a lot of answers to the insubstantial state that are available. You just need to go get the right class. Like if you're in Shadow Step, release technically works. If you're in any of the other insubstantial states, tracking, greater release, dimensional rift will kill you. Is it
lost, I get lost a lot.
Banish.
Banish? That's the
Banish.
other one I'm thinking of. Banish,
I
and
was
then
actually thinking.
there's another one, dimensional shackles or something like that. I don't know. Whatever. The one that stops you from going insubstantial.
Planar grounding?
Planar grounding. There we go. I've got
Excellent.
D&D on the brain. Dimensional shackles. But like there's plenty of answers. It's just you got to know who has those answers. And I mean, if you know there's an assassin at your park, just have someone just know that you have to have those answers, because otherwise they're gonna keep using them. You guys have 1.5 million uses of insubstantial per game, because you're like, oh, I died. Oh well, I got 6 insubstantials again. Like, great. That's so many.
Yeah, I've had people argue with me that the incant to get out of insubstantial, you shouldn't be able to stop saying it. Like you're basically wasting it. You are doing it just by starting it. And I think it's just because of the way I play it that people have said that to me. But like Jamie's shaking his head. No, that's definitely not the rules, but
Yeah,
I hate the way you play this game, Marty. I'm sorry. I'm following all of the rules. I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, the answer is very simple. Just get good.
Okay, there is that. But
scout.
Lily also mentioned about how there's not a lot of scouts in play. And I definitely know at park level, at least, that there's been people that have played scout specifically because they see me playing assassin.
Then you're extra winning because it's a terrible class.
It needs some help. It needs. I mean, if the proposal goes through, it'll get some help. DMAG on recharge is a nice help.
Yeah.
They need a little bit more. Come on.
Javelins.
Times 10 takes too long. I mean, again, they should just still get it. Like this isn't about
Just give
that.
me charge 5.
It's a great buff. Charge 5 becomes pretty doable in a 10 or 15 minute game at like a park level. How many times do you get to recharge times 10? Like
it sucks. I've done
I
it.
never let anyone do a charge times
it's
10.
You're done it. So it's not sure, Timmy. You've done it once or twice maybe, but like
I've done it 2 to 3 times in a park level game, and it's not fun.
No.
And how long are you out of play then for that, right? Like we can do some basic math on how long it takes to do the auto battle hypothesis, whatever. But even then, that's a long time out of play. So like it's cool, it's a buff, but it's not like a.
If you're able to get a times 10 off, your team is probably already likely winning.
Yeah, it's the win more. I got time to do this.
Yeah.
We wiped them. Okay, what do we do? Charge times 10, I guess. Like
I guess. I know I've pulled it off a couple times because like I'll take low amounts of terrors to be able to use that. But especially when I'm playing Bard or maining Bard, I almost never let anyone charge more than 2 times. Like if they go into that third charge, I'm like, why? I have a confidence. Shut up. Go.
Yeah, or they have now because you existed, have now made this player have to go so far away from you out of combat to try to get 1 charge off. Cool. Like okay, they're not affecting this game, and one
Yeah.
dispel, like one more dispel, is basically irrelevant. Like it's cool, it's a buff. It's not going to be very impactful. So they should just say yes to that. That was like the only one that's like a slam dunk yes to me from all
Mhm.
those. It's like, okay, but it doesn't. The reality is it's not going to be very impactful, specifically at park level, which is where we play most of the time.
Yes.
At, at kingdom level, sure, you'll get it off a couple more times. Again, it's not game breaking. Any casting class that can take a pile of dispels is going to be better than the scout, and they'll still be
At
better
the
than the
DMAG,
scout.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in general, like it's still going to be a better class at dispelling and at doing whatever the spellcaster does because it's just a stronger class. In my opinion, again, this is my opinion on that, but the scouts
I mean, they
not strong.
have it. We covered it in the scout episode, which was the last episode. Go watch it.
You
But
can't make.
I will.
Oh,
It's about versatility of abilities, which,
Yeah.
although most assassin abilities are based in insubstantial, they all do something besides insubstantial. The only one that is just insubstantial is Shadow Step, and then you have complete control over that. And the thing that people forget about the Shadow Step and insubstantial is your feet aren't stuck to the ground. You just can't leave that spot. Like, you can still shuffle your feet around, move, adjust your weapons, change shape, whatever. So if someone tries to like gank you, do the catch and release, you could just maneuver yourself so that when they like finish the incant, you just smack them. Just, I mean, you might die too, but who cares? All of your things are per life.
armor, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but you're right. You're absolutely right. You're all totally right. You're all amazing. I love all of you guys.
Yeah. Okay. I lost my train of thought. It exploded. It got assassinated. All right.
Let's just go to the next question.
Okay.
It would be my turn on the
It
insubstantial.
is your turn on the insubstantial.
The only comment I'll say is that I covered it a lot in the last question about one very aggressive manner to run flanks and get back to your team. Really like it. Everybody else has covered that you use it defensively, offensively, pre-casting it, being able to, I step into the, or whatever, I vanish from, I return to the physical, whatever, however
Yeah.
you want to mess with the casting. Excellent. Very, very cool. It's very strong, and being able to have it kind of queued up for when you might need it is cool. So like great skills, annoying, sure. It can be obnoxious when you have to deal with people who are doing that, but that's kind of part of how the game works, and
Mhm.
you can still mess them up, and sometimes you make them burn their spell, make them burn their ability. So, but yeah, I think everyone basically covered it. I think I covered mine in the last thing, so that's all I wanted to say is that I covered it basically.
It's just something I know it doesn't cover that much, but I wanted to go over the fact that insubstantial is more versatile than just, oh shit, like there's other options. Use it. It's got ability. You've got 6 uses of it per life.
Oh, absolutely. Blink is one of my favorites, especially with like
so
waist
good.
high, like crappy terrain. Basically, just the flagging tape terrain where you can go underneath it. So I vanished from sight. I flipped around to the other side, been over 10 feet away, returned to the physical world, returned to the physical world, and blasted the guy because I was playing a crossbow one, and shot him on the other side of the wall because now he can't run me down because I could shoot over, because it's waist high, so you could fight over or shoot over, cast over.
Mhm.
So I'm like, sweet. I just flip myself underneath, return to the physical world, blop, blast the guy, and they can't run you down anymore because I put myself on the other side of awesome terrain. Yay! Like it's just so damn good, guys. Just if you really have problems, you can always ask where people think 10 feet is from them and make them clarify what 10 feet is to them, and then it's no longer an argument about like what I think 10 feet is. You give them the power, and if they say it's shorter or farther than 10 feet may or may not be, at least they are comfortable with what that range is, and now I know where I have to be to at least use my blink accordingly to
Right.
get away from them. Same thing with shooting, just the funny comment. Charlie, I like to ask people, where do you think 20 feet is? And that they say, well, I think this is 20 feet. And then I take one half step or full step back, and then I'm like, sweet, boom. And then I gave them the option. I let them clarify where 20 feet is. Okay?
20 feet is a little bit bigger than a Camry by 3 feet.
Yep.
Like,
And if they want to say that it's only about 12 feet and take that full draw, that's on them.
no, that's
That's dirty. My point is if I let people clarify what they're comfortable with, then I just avoid arguments.
Yeah.
and then I just do what they are happy with, and that's good for small games, not necessarily great for big games. But
So
off topic, sorry.
the other thing with the insubstantial is I know I've taken a lot of road trips with Haj and Balder, and at one point we were like, how's the best way to get through the worst possible dungeon, which is basically just a ton of terrain problems, and we're like, assassin.
Yeah.
They're just like, we have an anti-magic field, a demag room, and then there's a sand pit over there. We're like, blink.
Yep.
Done.
Teleport too.
Yeah.
This is really important for game designers. They can absolutely say, I'm sorry, you can't blink through this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you can't teleport through this. So if they are worried about assassin being a game breaking class, which it can be depending on what you're doing, quest breaking, just put that on there. You'll get some hemming and hawing from the assassins who feel like you're cheating them of their awesome ability, but it's only because it's so damn busted in the first place. Maybe not busted, but it's really, really good. It's okay. Design your games to account for some of that. Or if you don't want to change that and you want to let them do it, just be like, okay, congratulations. You have broken the game. Please don't do that. Go experience the dungeon without doing that. Like I concede you have bested our dungeon, but now please go play it so that everyone can enjoy it and check out the hard work we put into it.
Right.
I've had to do it once or twice where people have gotcha'd me on some of my game designs where I've missed the some of the broken shit, and I'm like, okay, you win, good job. Now go play the game. Don't do that though. Fun. Anyways.
And I think a little bit to go with game design like that though is I've seen some. I hope that I see more of it where you do have terrain options, but if there's terrain that you feel that insubstantial state could break it, you say, all right, well, there's regular walls here, and then there's like a force wall that, like, nothing can really get through it. So you have a few that, all right, assassins can utilize their abilities in some areas, and in other areas can't, and that's perfectly acceptable too.
I know Keep on the Borderlands has done it a few times where we've said like these walls are magically enhanced or whatever and you can't teleport through them. That's part of a safety feature and part of a game design thing, because I really don't think we want people hopping into the middle of a swarm of like 50 people and being like alive and then just everybody punching them basically because they're at close range and don't have the ability to swing a stick.
Yay, violence.
There's
it happens. That's the
Yeah.
nature of this class, whether it's okay or not. You're gonna get punched sometimes.
I mean, unfortunately, the beginner classes we like handing out, Monk, Assassin, Barbarian. Barbarian and Assassin both very quickly get abilities that get them hurt more often than not. Mainly because we can't see visually that someone's insubstantial. So we're like, swing the stick. And they're not paying attention because they're insubstantial. They're just like, I'm paying attention over here, and they get hit in the back and they're like, what the heck happened? We got to work on something for that. I don't know how a good way to do it, but
One thing I usually do is just announce that I'm insub if I see anyone aggressing towards me, just to make sure it's clarified, then they know I'm in that state. And if I'm like moving, sometimes they'll be like, yeah, blink or teleport, just in case there needs to be some sort of communication just to clarify things, which I guess is more of a thing like with Phoenix League. Or some of the more competitive aspects, but it can clarify a lot of things and prevent you from getting just hit out of nowhere.
Another reason to wear physical armor.
Yes.
And then also like another thing, like what Lily was talking about with the game design aspect. One thing I like to do, especially with like newer champions, is at the beginning of every game, if I'm playing assassin, or even if I'm not, or if I have some other insubstantial ability class, I'll ask, so these obstacles, can I insub through them?
Yep.
Just to be more polite. Sometimes it annoys people.
All the time. All the time. Clarifications.
But
it's totally fine.
But it just gets them thinking like, oh wait, yeah, that ability does things that's weird, and it has like an entire page in the rulebook.
It's got a good chunk. It's not a small little section. It's big.
You asking that question, Timid, all the time is what got me to start asking it, because it definitely makes a difference. And it's kind of annoying to try to do it, and then the reads yell at you like, you can't do that. Why not? It's part
It's
of
in the rules.
Part of my class.
Like, I know one of our champions at ET likes island games a lot, where there's like 5 or 6 10 to 20 foot wide islands, and then everything else is water, so you've got to walk. And I know Morty just sprints around the field because he's like, teleport, Blake. Yeah. And you're like, great. I'm over here like goose stepping, trying to keep in line real quick, or pigeon stepping, whatever. I'm just like, da 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 da, trying to stay in like walking speed and teleporting over here, running across the field without a care in the world. It's yeah. Use insubstantial. Okay. On to the next question. Recommended tactics, which kind of ties into battlefield roles, but it's a little bit different. So battlefield tactics, recommended tactics, target acquisition, either both offensively and defensively. Now the defensively, I think for you guys is a little weird because you don't have many defensive abilities. A lot of your abilities are about going out. They're defensive for yourself, but not like team defensive. They're protection for your own well-being, less than like defensively thinking like a Harden or something like that, that you get to hand out or something like that. So Jamie, can you start us off with this?
Sure. So I talked a little bit about it earlier in the video here, some of the tactics I like about fighting on the middle. Other people have also commented on this as well. But being able to use your abilities to take advantage of that. So instead of talking about the one that we've already talked about, let's talk about backfield play in your opponent's backfield, because that can be quite a bit of fun. To me, as a class that, like some martial classes, the more physically fit or active or athletic you are, the more you can get out of this class, since it can be such a high cardio running class. Well, that plays into target acquisition, because running down people in your opponent's backfield and being able to get away is extremely useful to your team, right? So, for example, in a game where where lives matter, which there's plenty of people who like to do it, or whatever the case is, stopping the healers from being able to res by choosing them as a target can be a good answer. However, I would almost say the better answer is to make sure that you utilize assassinate and pick off weak players. Again, this is predator and prey as a certain way to look at it. If I see a unarmored person, it doesn't necessarily have to be a low skill or a new player, because that can kind of ruin their time. So I'm not encouraging you to go ruin the new player's time. So we'll use this as somebody who may just be unaware or unarmored or whatever, an easy target for you to take down, where you can weigh the math of, well, I have armor, I'm pretty fit, and they're looking kind of portly today. Or it's 100 degrees and nobody wants to run, but you're dumb and you're going to do it anyways because I got to help my team be successful.
Yeah.
Hero assassins. Picking off those players and making sure to assassinate them, making sure they know that they're cursed, will go almost further than worrying about the healer. Because if you build up a big enough queue for the healer to try to res through of cursed assassinated people, they basically can't get through it. We just had a end rain where that was essentially the mentality. Okay, cool. We just kill them more than their healers can res them. Once we have built up a big enough queue, you can invade their spawn, and then you'll take care of the healer at that point.
Right.
Now, again, that's a smaller-ish. It wasn't a massive game. Like, that's a harder tactic specifically there, where you can kill enough of the other team to then take your team into their spawn. It does happen in large games. We've seen that at some kingdom level things. I mean, sure, some keeps. It's happened where you can push a whole team basically back into their spawns, which is yikes. Hundreds of people playing.
Yeah.
But that would be, yeah. So to break that down more simply than all the words that I used, you could go kill the healer, or you could just assassinate the weak and make the healer overwork, and then that's less people on the field because now they're having to wait, assuming the game designers are letting them wait in a queue of dead to spawn in the first place. There's some people who've accounted for this, and they use forced spawning rules where you can't just sit there in dead forever and hold your respawn. You must respawn once you've hit your 30 seconds or X amount of people to spawn in a group, or whatever the case may be. So at that point, you just run up them numbers, and that becomes very, very powerful, or whatever. So it's something to think about. I don't know how many people think about it in that format, but sometimes that's the right target acquisition in my mind.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, you're getting quantity, not quality of enemies. You're trying to kill as many as possible and cause problems long term, instead of just relying on your ability to pick off premier targets, essentially.
great example might be, let's say Charlie decided to deck himself out head to toe in his armor, and let's say I'm under armored this time. I'm rolling with maybe a Gambison,
Mhm.
and it's a bad Gambison, so I don't even get to sneak 2 points out of it, just like 1 point, and I've got gaps, and I didn't bring arms or legs.
Mhm.
Well, normally, man, yeah, Charlie's a problem on that field. Look at him go. He's killing people. He's covered in armor. That's a high priority target. Not for me. That becomes a low priority target. Let him get bogged down with polls or other people or problems or spellcasters,
Mhm.
and we're going to go pick off the easy targets where I can be successful. And hopefully he doesn't outkill me killing bad players. Or bad is not fair. I shouldn't say it that way, but killing the underprepared or whatever people that aren't ready for that. And that
Unprepared,
can be frustrating.
unaware players.
Yeah, underprepared,
Yeah.
unaware.
Yeah.
That's a better way to. I mean, we can say low skill. I don't want to say bad though, because that's not fair.
No.
Underdeveloped. That's probably better. Underdeveloped would be a better choice.
Mhm.
And again, don't do it too much. You don't need to kill Timmy 47 times. Poor Timmy. But anyways, I don't want to dwell on this too much, but I think that that's a maybe sort of unique perspective on
Mhm.
target acquisition for the class.
I actually really like that perspective. I hadn't thought of it that way before, and that
Quantity over
it's
quality. Yeah.
pretty good. Like, I almost want to try that out a bit, see how it goes.
And Charlie, you're a perfect candidate for it, right? You're good at the class already. You prefer to shoot, but when you go and run out there with 2 sticks and you are high mobility, you can't catch me. You get to hit and run, which is part of the hit and run specialist I'm talking about. Where you kill these guys and you run. You hit them, you leave. It's
Mhm.
right in the name. It's a classic tactic for combat, but it is extremely powerful in certain types of games where, let's say, lives matter.
Yes.
Extremely powerful. Other game formats, there's other things to do, but I just want to touch on that one because this is where Assassin is the strongest, in my opinion, for
Mhm.
what their kit lets them do.
Right. Timmy, what are some recommended tactics?
Well, if you're going for more of a high priority target, such as a clanky armored warrior, and you're having to deal with, defending, you can always just hold person the warrior and go behind them, where they might not be able to reach you as easily, and then you can just go behind the legs where they might have a gap in their armor if they don't have Gambison.
Reach around. Good job,
Yeah,
Tim.
reach around. uh,
I mean,
but
that's a perfect use for those weird like assassin weapons of like the comma. It's like it doesn't have to be a long one. It just has to be like a short sword with like a 2-inch little hook at the end that's just foam, and you're like,
grab,
and just
tap,
hitting.
tap. But yeah, like you hold person like a warrior in 6 points of plate armor. They're already like irritated that they can't move their feet.
Mm-hmm.
They might take themselves out of it, but at the same time they're not as mobile, so they can't really do much for footwork, so you've hindered them that way. You can go behind them and then you can just hit them like 6 times and then assassinate them. Make sure you do that when you kill them, because otherwise they'll probably true grit, and nobody likes it when you just killed someone and now they're back and not CC'd,
Mm-hmm.
and they probably have a shield or like hardened short swords or something like that to deal with arrows and stuff like that. But yeah, like that sort of a thing, especially like in small games, like if you're at your local park and you have like this big clanky boy and you can just do that. It's not the most fun for that person if you focus them like that and the rest of the team doesn't have answers for you doing it. But it is usually if like the teams are imbalanced and you or in some sort of a way where they don't have necessarily good enough like a lot of spellcasters to deal with a warrior, you can do that sort of a situation, because otherwise a decent fighter with 6 points of armor, especially with ancestral, and they like walk up to your team, they're probably running Florentine or sword and shield or maybe a polearm,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be very difficult to deal with that for like small park situations unless you do something of that sort. Or of course, if
Yes.
someone wounds it, then you just like take them out quickly with the coup de grace,
Right.
which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But like that's like that sort of a thing. Now, if they have a pocket healer or some sort of support, this is obviously in a small group environment. Taking them out and then take potentially, or the warrior like doing something in that sort of thing, or like kind of being more of a distraction, might be more key. But it's more of like, I guess, more of a defensive thing, but that would be small field.
It works. I mean, it's small fields are so weird because the balancing teams becomes very, very difficult. And if you're not balancing teams well, it really shows. And if people aren't willing to like play to the level of their park, like if you've got 2 warlords in a shire, they better never be on the same team because that's just not gonna go well.
That's not fair, and I am the victim of this. Well, don't victim shame me here, but
You're not at a shire.
when now I am. I'm still banned from my park.
Oh, that's right. That's
Yeah, well, whatever. But it comes down to, if you can, at least for one game, let people play with their friends, because typically my friends are the people that care most about combat, right? And I will go months, 6 months, sometimes a year, maybe more, where I don't get to play with my friends. I have to constantly play against them, and it's kind of a bummer because I would like to show out with those friends at kingdom level events. So I'm not saying always let this happen where you have warlord and warlord together to, every single game. You don't have to do that. But if you're going to run 3 games that day, find one that seems like it could be the least damaging for them, and let them have a go at it. Also, you can even ask, because I promise you, most of the time, if you ask me, like, hey, how seriously are you taking this game? Odds are I'm going to say not at all, and I'm going to goof around and roll around in the dirt or throw things at people or just be bad at crossbowing. And that's my day, and it would still be cool to be able to play with my friend in that instance. Maybe they're taking it more serious, but I'm just trolling around and not taking it very serious. So sometimes it's just ask, like, hey,
Right.
are you trying today?
It's an individual. It changes based on who you have going. If you have someone that wants to keep going 100% every single time, it makes it hard.
True. Just please let me play with my friends sometimes. It doesn't even have to be the warlord. Sometimes it's like I can't play with Herc ever. Like it's constantly having to play against him, and like that's a bummer because we never get to play together. Or like I don't get to play with Jess even, and it's like, come on, let me play with my friends, please, sometimes. And I just I want to break the stigma. Just because they're warlords doesn't mean that they don't have feelings.
No, but we're coming out of that age, and we'll hit this a little later. We're coming out of that age of like people that go hard all the time. So your tournament winners, your paragons are hard to beat and they're hard to balance. And we're starting to adapt to this idea of, hey, I know you're real good. Stop it for like 2 games. Like, don't try to ruin everybody's day today. We want to have more new players come out and not feel like they don't know what's going on because you just yelled 3 spells at them in 30 seconds. Don't do that.
Yeah, they should be taking more teaching roles on the thing anyways.
Yes.
Grow and encourage them. This is a different topic for a different time, of course, but I mean, yeah. Come on.
Okay. Mordecai, tactics, target acquisition, stuff like that.
Well, what I had written down was sort of in the same vein of what Lily said. So instead of saying any more, I just want to tell kind of a funny story.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really. But, you try to target people without armor on. You try to target people that are easier to kill for the most. But one of my favorite things ever is to make sure that the warrior knows that you're there and let them forget about you, and then run up behind them and kill them with all 6 points of their armor on and assassinate them. I did it to a couple of different people. It's just so satisfying. It really is,
I mean,
like, how did I hit you 7 times before you realized to turn around?
I mean, it's
count.
playing. Yeah.
I've had to count for them. I'm just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
Yep,
10.
exactly.
They're like, holy crap, you hit me 14 times. I'm like, and I got thanked for it because they just had no idea what happened to them. It's exactly that.
A
Exactly
wild
that.
disappeared.
It's.
So that's all I got on that story.
I mean, that's playing a mind game with the warrior, which is really entertaining. You're like, I'm here, and then just like go quiet for a bit and like sneak around, play normal, and then just drum roll. Great stuff. Good
Well,
stuff.
I think that's a secondary tactic to my character. I'm always so loud and annoying, So when I am sneaky,
People forget about it.
expect less, you know.
And Magnet, what's some recommended tactics?
Yeah, so I'm gonna do some recommended tactics for a few of the different ways that you can play. One, when you're an archer, regardless if you're doing archery or even melee, is Jamie kind of hit on it a little bit already. Hit people who are unaware. Um,
Mhm.
Now, granted, I go for higher value people. Like I usually will try to like get the unaware healer or the unaware wizard, like spellcasters. I like eating up spellcasters. That tends to be like my favorite targets.
Right.
And some ways to like make people even bring down their guard. Like a way I'd mentioned before is I do archery a lot, and I don't aim at the frontliners of people looking at me. I'm going to be shooting at the people that are looking away from me or looking at a different target. Other archers tend to be a really good candidate for this because usually they're looking at whoever they're shooting at. I
Mhm.
mean, I sometimes even tunnel vision a little bit too. It does happen. So if you catch an archer that's really focusing in on someone, then it's a good time to loose an arrow on them and hopefully kill them.
Mhm.
So as for the range game, that's kind of how I usually play it. And some tactics. You are an assassin. Your goal is to blend, and a good example. I'm gonna keep it as a rather short story here. Is
Mhm.
there was a main where I shot all my arrows and proceeded to walk. There's a front line on one side, front line on the other, and it's a bridge to get in. And I walked past Steve or Tom Gutenberg. He's a reeve, and I'm like, hey, just a heads up, I'm walking over here. I'm still alive. And I said it low enough that only he could hear. He's like, oh no, I see that. There's no sword on your head.
Mhm.
All right, just making that very clear. And I proceeded to just pick up arrows. And then I saw the healer backline, and then I murdered the healer backline. And people saw me after that. And I go running out with half a dozen arrows in one hand, one sword at my hip, and one sword in my hand, and then I vanish from sight, get back on the other side of the bridge, fired those 6 arrows. I proceeded then to drop my bow again and just walk across, and I saw the reeve again, Steve, and I'm like, hey, I'm going across again, just a heads up, still perfectly fine. And he's just shaking his head at this point because I have to go through the front line of the enemies that are, shield wall and everything, and just walk on through. Like nobody asked my state, nobody asked what my status is. They just let me through. And I proceeded to pick up more arrows, and then I did it again. It did not work the third time. I tried it; it didn't work. But
Finally caught on.
those first 2 times were great. So I mean that can be part of like how you play too. I usually like trying to go for like those higher value targets when I'm in the back line of just if they are a spellcaster, they're usually high on my priority list. I do want to try Jamie's order of priority though, of just hit the people that are unaware, hit the people that are unarmored, and just build up that queue of people that need to get rest and see how that works. Because I think that would be a very interesting way to play this. And then the other tactics, I mean, this kind of fits into like for me at least, like my version of like looking the part and playing an assassin. You got that person hiding in the shadows, hiding in plain sight. Ghillie suits are pretty inexpensive, and if you have forests a lot at your kingdom, like I've had so much fun with ghillie suits, man, and they're pretty cheap. You can get them for maybe like $100 here and there. Mine has lasted me. I think it's like a 7-year-old ghillie suit at this point.
And they're not
And
that
all you
hard to
do
make either.
No. And all you do is you run out into the forest before combat begins, and you literally just roll around in the leaves and underbrush and stuff like that. And then as you stand up, you look at the vegetation that's like at shoulder level, at waist level, and you grab some pieces and you throw them into the ghillie suit. And then you just lay back, wait for people, run through. Now, if people see you moving, you're going to look like you're Bigfoot walking around the forest, and they'll spot you pretty easy. But if you stand still, you'll have people that will walk past you, and then you can shoot them from behind and kill them. I think the first GAC I brought out the ghillie suit. I think I was doing Druid Archer at that time, and this was way back at the Greystoke Forest. And I think Jamie was actually my target for that one. I think I shot him in the arm, And I don't know if it was Jamie or Cue Ball that spotted me, but only one of the people in the group spotted me, and I was standing still, and they're calling out like, "He's right there! He's right there!" I'm just standing there like, "Nope, nope." And then I shot a second time, and then everybody saw me, and then I had to run.
I wonder if that was my first GAC. I can't
I think it
remember.
was you were with Cue Ball.
Yeah, I ruined that GAC, which was excellent. That's when I had stole there was that sign in the forest that said, "Do not take these runes" or something, right? And my whole goal, because I was such a new player, was, well, the dumb adventurer would do this. I would absolutely take these runes, so we stole them. And the answer for a while, which was pretty funny, was that the enemies became invincible for a long time. And I'm pretty sure we had a lot of sprinting and jumping through the terrible brush. And eventually I got asked to return them because it had eventually broken GAC, because at that time I was pretty good at running, and I'm kind of fat and old now, but it was something else. That was a really neat experience. And I do remember being shot at from some kind of bush thing in the woods. I'm pretty sure I lost a bow as well at that event.
Yeah.
It was like late and dark and terrible. It was awesome. The ghillie suit thing is very cool, Charlie. You're like the only person I've ever seen do it. I would warn you though, if you do it in Texas, there's a lot of fire ants and scorpions and snakes and shit. So if you're gonna go roll around in the woods, just be mindful you're gonna probably pick up some critters. So that thing biting you is
Good idea.
just keep it in
Oh
mind.
my
I
God.
for the out of state Texas people, the scorpions don't like it, and the fire ants are literally everywhere. Our fields that we play in regularly for park are just fire ant mounds all the time. So
Wow,
That's
I'm
terrifying.
glad we don't have that.
no, it's
Yeah.
awful. Everything hates you here. It's kind of like Australia, but less bad.
So a good tip is know your local wildlife before rolling around on the ground with a ghillie suit.
Do a little research, some make sure you're not rolling around in poisonous plants or dangerous plants. Yeah, okay.
Just wear long sleeves. You're good.
Do
And
some
shorts,
forestry,
not shorts, but pants.
Pants.
Long sleeves, pants.
Oh, and then the very last thing I want to touch on, and this should be it for the recommended tactics, is keep your throwies in an inconspicuous place. Like pouches usually work pretty dang well. Like I carry like 2 of them on me, and there'll be times where like I'm out of arrows, and the person will notice that, and I'll have a sword at my hip, and I'll also have a sword in hand. But if they don't see that enchantment strip to show the weapon's poison because I already used it or did whatever, or they'll even declare like, "Hey, is your weapon poison?" I say no. They'll usually charge. But I've had times where like I'll have a throwy that's near where my sword is on my left hip, and I'll actually grab the throwy and just like throw it out at them like that.
The other hand, yeah.
And then sometimes it hits them, and other times they'll try their best to dodge it out, and then you just grab your sword and boop, and you hit them, and they just totally flinch out for a thrown weapon. They're like 5 feet away from you, not really in threat of your sword yet, and they're not in threat of you, but that just completely interrupted their movement so that you can just go on and tap them and take them out.
It's the surprise effect of any projectile is a huge benefit. I know the warriors and the paladins and the anti-paladins talked about javelins in like a downstick position, and then you just up and throw it because it's a javelin. It acts as a downstick when it's in your hand, or a javelin when you throw it. For little hockey puck. I mean, I'm pretty sure, Timmy, you can hide a hockey puck in your hand and hold the sword. Like,
that would be a little weird because of the size, and like wearing gloves would be kind of
that's a
hard.
good point. With
You
the
can
gloves, it might
kind
be
of
tricky.
you can kind of do it.
But like hiding the puck in your hand would be really easy if it's an open hand. You can just throw it out. Okay, so the assassin doesn't have that many abilities compared to like casters who have a laundry list of things. But you do have a decent chunk. Are there any hidden gems in that, or does everybody pretty much know about all of those? I know we talked a little bit about the hold person can kind of be a lifesaver every once in a while. We've talked a lot about Blink because Blink is just beautiful.
Settle on all just saying, like we did the one time, what we think the best ability in the classes.
Let's do that. All right. So on 3, you guys are just going to yell out what you think the best ability is. You ready? All right. 1, 2, 3.
Crossbow.
Shadow step. Actually, bounces count would probably be the best one.
I was on mute. Oh no.
You ruined it, Charlie. You
I'm
ruined it.
sorry.
This went great. This went so well.
It was way better the first time.
I mean,
That's my answer.
That's really probably the strongest ability the class has.
yeah,
Because you said best ability. I mean,
yeah. I mean the
Your favorite, whatever hidden. There's nothing hidden about like this class. Everything
No.
has a purpose,
Yeah.
you know. And something so overwhelmingly so. Half of why I said crossbow is because like I think it's undervalued, so like it becomes kind of a hidden gem. It's not necessarily an ability exclusive to this class, but it kind of is because you know bows and things, and there's not very many crossbows, so it's
No.
kind of fun.
True. I mean, you could kind of call the light throwies as that hidden gem because you are the only class that gets it.
You can take a metric crap ton of those things.
So many.
Also,
Also,
many.
you can do,
the kit is so solid that you use all this kit on such a regular basis that it's hard to say something's a hidden gem.
Right.
Even like going over use cases of certain abilities and stuff like that, like it's not all that hidden, I would say. At least I don't know, it's hard to find something where it's like, yeah, this is low key OP or something like that.
Right. We know most of it's already OP. We just love it. I mean, Blink, if Assassinate is taken correctly, like people are taking the cursed state and actually telling that healer when they're trying to respawn them that, hey, I've been cursed. If that's happening, Assassinate and Blink are probably like two of the most powerful abilities in the game just because of their straight up effect on the field. I mean, a 50-foot radius insubstantial where you're free to move is amazing. And then unlimited use of it, like cursing someone. Cursed is one of the most destructive states in our game that everyone forgets about because it's just, oh, it's cursed. And because we do respawns, we'll talk about this in a second. Hold on. Respawns are a different problem, but let's move on to the next question so we can keep powering through this. Skills are things you want to focus on to get better. Magnus, you want to start us off with that?
Sure. One to focus on, and this can be done, and it will help you in several classes. And something that I still struggle with is get better at throwing things. Getting better and knowing how to properly throw something will get you better at throwing spell balls. It'll get you better at throwing your own throws. Also, as I've learned last year at Spring Word, knowing how to properly throw something can also make you better at doing wrap shots, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I never grew up with a sport that taught me how to throw, so learning how to throw was me and Clalibus sitting there throwing a Gatorade bottle on like a Friday evening at Spring War, and I've been working on it, but I mean my shots have gotten better, and I can actually throw a light throwy now as well with like, it's something that can actually not just be laughed at and veer off like 8 feet from the target when they're 10 feet away. Like I can actually aim in a general direction of where somebody is now. So that I did most of my assassin run when I was making a push for Paragon with archery, which once again archery can help out with several other classes too. I'd definitely say if bow is something that you think you'd like to do, pick it up, get good at it, get skilled at it, and it's going to help you in other classes as well. Like that's the big thing I like to look for is what can you work on that can overlap to improve your game in other classes.
Yeah.
Because if you can focus on a skill that gets you better in multiple areas, that should be the kind of the zone where you'd want to be. At least for me.
Bow crosses over into a couple. I mean, stick skill crosses over into all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Just getting better at some of our physical aspects of our game is always a good trick.
Yeah. You can also practice incantations to get faster at them. Assassin incantations are already really quick. We have poison, which that's a ×2. But I mean, Shadow Step and Blink, which are going to be the ones that use a lot, are
Mhm.
one-liners. I mean, assassinate is also a one-liner.
A
Hold
single
person,
word.
hold person, coup de grace ×3, teleport ×5. So you can get better, I guess, at saying I command thee to stop, or death shall come for thee, or I travel through the aether.
Mhm.
I try to look for words that like you'd stumble into sometimes here and there. Assassin doesn't really have a whole lot of those. Like wizard has a lot of spell casting that if you
Yeah.
were to do it for your first time, you might stumble over the incantations a bit, and
Mhm.
if you stutter it too much, it might not get called.
It's
Also, oh sorry, go on.
the hold person is one I think that you probably have to work on, because I know there's been a couple times in our past episodes people have complained that like for a while they thought the hold person incant was I command thee stopped.
Yeah.
Because people just were skipping words entirely and they were just like I command thee stop,
Mhm.
stop, stop, stop. Like basically they're just yelling stop at them and thinking
Yeah.
that's a spell.
So I guess that's what I would kind of suggest to focus on, and focus on what can affect you when, how you can synergize with your team. I guess this could almost go under hidden gem abilities. It's not an ability of your own, but getting enlightened soul is pretty awesome. An E soul assassin is really fun to play as.
I mean,
Amount of things that can rip you out at that point is you cut down that by a significant margin. It's hilarious when somebody tries to do one of those to you and go, nope, e-soul, and then you just keep running.
yeah. Is it? It's basically so tracking would still work on you because it specifically says verbal magic and tracking is
Tracking will
extraordinary.
work on you. Yep.
Yeah.
Tracking works.
Yeah.
Nothing much else.
Just keep coming back to that scout getting to track you out.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie,
Which
what
is
are
Jamie said, yes, make him play scout.
Jamie, what are some skills you want to focus to get better on?
It was queued up to the wrong thing. My camera. Oh no. I ate my dinner. It was wonderful. Eat dinner, kids. That is what makes you more powerful when you go to play Amp
Yeah.
Plenty of juice. Juice. No, so ultimately, I've said this a bunch of times. I'll say it again. Go hit the treadmill. Get your cardio up, and you will just have a better time in general in all of the fighting aspects that you do, because the more time you can spend on the field, the better you get, because you have to take less breaks.
Mhm.
Spend more time on. It's just more practice. Obviously, it's not a requirement to play this game, but as this game keeps evolving and changing, it's becoming more athletic and more sporty and more, combat heavy. Apparently, I keep flipping between muted colors and not on my screen, so that's interesting to see.
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm distracted by watching myself have that happen. Anyhow, that's not the fun one, and nobody wants to do that because that involves fitness and like going to work out or something. So to give you one that's more, I guess, feasible for anybody who wants to do it, if you want to work on improving your ability to play the class or just getting better at it in general, being very familiar with your shadow step or blink is
Mhm.
probably my most important spell, and the thing that keeps me going more so than cardio would, keeping myself safe and involved and in the game and protected from magic if I don't have magical support.
Right.
So if you're running solo, if you don't have ESOL or like Pro Magic or something, this is a great way to keep yourself from just getting casted down when you're on your way to go do whatever it is that you're going to do as an assassin. So be very comfortable, know which one to use when, and the only way you can practice this, in my opinion, is to go and actually be involved in games and being in situations where you are the target of
Mhm.
spells or abilities, even so much as to protect yourself from projectiles. If you see an archer who's going to shoot you, being able to jump insubstantial and having it kind of queued up before it hits you, and just identifying the timing, and don't be afraid to be generous on this. You don't want to fall into the I'm just being a wiener about the timing. If it's close, you don't have to be like, nah, man, I definitely was insubstantial before it hit you. If it's close, it's close.
Mhm.
The tie can go to them instead sometimes. It's like, it doesn't have to be every time. Just, figure out where you know, I vanish from sight. Okay, I didn't finish sight. Like that's
Mhm.
fine, you know. But again, another pro to wearing armor. Then at least
True.
if you screwed it up, you can eat that arrow. And this is a great way to, again, this is why armor is important, is it gives you more time on field. A
Yes.
lot of my suggestion is get as much time playing as you can because you get to develop your skills more by being in the situations more often. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, there you go. So cardio, the elliptical is good. If you have bad knees, I have to do that now. My shin like keeps getting hurt when I run, so now I have to like low
Stop
impact
hurting
cardio.
yourself, Jamie.
My elbow just recovered finally from when Ty was here. That took
Oh.
forever.
Your
So
body is going to be on display in some museum after this of like, this is what a body that went through hell looks like.
it just, it's just dumb. It's dumb. It just keeps I keep getting hurt. But there are alternatives if you do have medical issues that you can do to still gain physicality on the field, like low impact exercises. Swimming can be a wonderful one,
Oh, yeah.
especially for being overweight or whatever. It can, I guess, technically be hard on like some of your like ankle joints or something. I don't know if I've heard that somewhere. I don't know if that's true or not, but if running's too hard, don't do it. You can go swim. Swimming's awesome.
Mhm.
Takes a lot of the weight off. Or like the elliptical again has been great. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. So anyways, cardio and learn your spells. Blink and shadow step specifically.
Morty, what are some things you use to get better at, or skills you need to focus on to get better?
You know, this is one of the melee classes, so getting good with your stick.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I had in for this one. You know, just you can't have a shield, so why not fight flow? Learn
Mhm.
how to fight on that other side. You know, if you learn how to fight left-handed, if you're right-handed, then you can throw with your right hand and still be relatively decent with your left hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's all I had for this story.
I mean, it's especially when you have throwies. Very few people can throw with their offhand effectively. So having to throw with your main hand makes that offhand sword so much more important. Learning to be able to fight with your either your left or your right, whatever's your offhand, get better. Damn it, what are some things you focused on to get better?
Florentine. It's just it's going to be the weapon style for melee that you're probably going to be doing, other than that single sword.
Mhm.
But yeah, those two things. Utilizing just practicing with a bow at some point, like in battle games. You're a projectile heavy class, including like throwing weapons. Like it's just useful. Like you could just take time to just utilize those primarily in a few games, just to try to get more experience. Like where on the ground would you have to hit to get something to bounce under a shield? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Can you like walk and kind of be unassuming, having a loaded crossbow, waiting for it to see like the side of somebody with a board? So like if they're holding like their board and then like you see like this opening here, just peg them with the crossbow once they look away.
Mhm.
Stuff like that to look into. Cardio is important, obviously. Making sure that you can get your charging canned off, very importantly, to make sure that you can keep poison up for when you're fighting in melee.
Yep.
Like when I first started getting really serious, when I had time at work, I would just go through the charging cant on repeat.
Mhm.
Because like, hey, if you play another class, like you just have to do it more. But I don't advise doing like charging like Evoker and stuff like that for your elemental barrage like 2 to 3 times in a game. You'll be winded. Other class, but still charge in can't, which is
Yeah.
variable in like all classes in Amtgard that have charge abilities.
I think all is it just Barbarian that doesn't have a charge ability? I think it's just Barbarian. Yeah, it's just Barbarian.
Yeah, as far as I understand, yeah.
Yeah.
Why didn't Barbarian get a buff? Fucking scouts.
They
It's a
should get
harder
something.
sell. They should. I agree.
Just yeah.
But
Rechargeable
they're also
right after death.
eh,
I would love it, dude. Are you kidding me? I would go
yeah.
and die and then recharge that thing. I
Or
don't care if I'm out for 10 minutes. I'm coming back. I'm gonna die and do it again. It's gonna be
or like
great.
the brutal strike.
Yeah, I mean, really, yeah. But
One of
different.
the two.
Yeah, there's
But
options.
yeah, that's different thing. But yeah, also like one thing I noticed for small throwing, like if you have more of a puck size thing, and if
Mhm.
like what I like to do is I have more shuriken-ish style where it looks like almost a little cross with little half-inch nubs, like 4 of them,
Mhm.
which this is something that you might find out that if you put backspin on something when you're throwing it under, it'll more likely to pop up, especially if you make them more bouncy. So
Mhm.
it does like fun things where you can just like fling it quick, have like your middle or forefinger or whatever, put backspin while you're throwing it to give it a little bit more accuracy. But of course, that depends on how you're building your weapons, which
Right.
can be another skill to focus on. Like um the non-hardening silicon cocking throwing weapons that you can make. Like there's I guess I could go into that like a lot. I spent a lot of time messing with my throwing weapons. Um, but like if you're wanting to throw things, looking into like what technology is out there, focusing on what you want the projectile to do within the realm of the rules,
Mhm.
and kind of building your style of utilizing that tech that you have created to actually pull off what you're trying to do with it
Yeah.
is like another thing that would help you because out of like all the weapons and stuff that we have in this game, like it's a class battle, so it's not like everyone's just using like you a short sword's a short sword. You
Mhm.
can build them lighter and stuff like that, but like throwing weapons, there's a lot of variability you can make in them,
Yes.
and it's key to assassin as in we have the most access to them,
Mhm.
and we have light thrown, which of course like if you just have like a little like disc, if you throw it and you don't have any form of spin and stuff like that, depending on the range, it'll start curving or flopping
Yeah.
over more frequently, which that'll probably give you like a worse time with throwing weapons. Spheres like um the 10 things that are
The
all
gamma balls.
foam. Yeah, the gamma ones. Like, those are nice. They're spherical, but they're also bigger and not as streamlined.
Mhm.
And they're not as buddy against armor.
Right. You've got to make. I mean, that's a whole other skill set to practice and
But
to
yeah,
work on. That's something to focus on. Is making your throwies A, accurate, B, safe. Well, A, safe, B, accurate, and C, uh, they're able to be felt through armor. I know I just made some javelins that are heavier than my swords, mainly because I want them to hit the armor and you're gonna feel it. They've got a lot of safety padding and stuff on them, but like if that javelin's too light, you're gonna throw it and the wind's gonna.
and
Same with your throwies,
don't,
your little ones.
don't yeah, and don't be afraid to put like a denser foam as like the base on it, and then just put a
Mm-hmm.
softer foam on the edge. Not like open cell foam, but like you can get like a lighter like EVA type foam that's
Mm-hmm.
like probably in like the 1.5 to 1.7 or like a little softer than like your sword foam,
Mm-hmm.
and that'll cushion the blow. Like you can use like the 4 pound foam, but that's getting more into like the tech of
Yeah.
like building things. But it is an important thing for someone who's at least building their own gear and playing assassin, I
Mm-hmm.
feel. Because yeah, if you're like just hucking a terrible throwing weapon that isn't doing things like flopping over and stuff, you won't be able to necessarily build a good skill set. And then you also want to make
Right.
sure you have consistency within your projectiles, so then you actually know where things are going.
Yep.
I
Uh,
guess that's a key tangent that I kind of went on.
no, you're good. You're
Uh,
good.
but yeah,
It's important to know your equipment, especially if you're the one making it. All right, let's move on to the next question because I know we're coming up on Jamie's timeline. So, what are some weaknesses you need to be aware of? Let's start with Jamie on this one.
Um, well, I guess weaknesses for the class is just kind of understanding the interactions between you and other classes. Like what happens if you are getting break concentration?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how does that affect you as a class versus what usually is a primary counter for other casters, for example? Looking into uh, understanding like these good matchups again, but the matchups always come down to you have to understand your level of skill versus another player's level of skill on
Mm-hmm.
top of understanding what class matchup happens as well.
Right.
Because fighting skill does matter, but like, okay, let's say Magnus is better than Tim in this instance, but Tim has 2 points of armor and Magnus is unarmored. Is this now a matchup that is feasible for Tim to win on a regular enough basis to
Mhm.
engage this opponent? It doesn't really matter what the class is anymore. This is just even equipment. And then you can then start taking into, I mean, assuming, let's say Tim is playing the assassin. I guess that was assassin v assassin for whatever, but it could be a barbarian. It doesn't matter, whatever it is. So judging that and knowing where you fit on the field is important because it can become a weakness if you overestimate or underestimate your class's
Right.
ability to match up against the warrior.
Mhm.
So it's kind of broad. It's not. I don't think the class honestly has a ton of weaknesses. So I'm curious to hear if other people feel differently. I'm mostly just never worried about anything. I just cool. I mean, nothing you can't run away from. I guess, like, oh no, this is a thing that I don't want to deal with. There's like 8 people. Okay, I'll leave.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's I hate not having like real content for stuff, but in this case, I don't know that there is much of a weakness to the class.
I mean, that's kind of a good I don't know if it's a completely good thing for the balance of the game, but it's a good thing for the class, definitely. Like,
I guess you could call it a weakness of just in its balance,
yeah.
right? Like it doesn't get a shield. It doesn't get more than 2 points of armor, right? Like, but I
Mhm.
don't even count that as a weakness. It's just a reality of this is what the class gets
Mhm.
as the class. So like, yeah.
Mhm. Mordecai, what's some weaknesses you see?
A good question, because I literally wrote down there is no weakness. Perfect class. So,
Yeah. All
yeah.
right.
If anything, the fact that it doesn't have much armor, I guess, is the only thing I could think of. I really don't think that's really a weakness, though.
I
Because you
mean,
still get the potential of one left point while you're trying to do one of your escapes, or,
mhm.
if they hit you just in time before you could run.
Yeah.
But,
I mean,
yeah, I'm in.
yeah, you guys are well set up. I mean, the only weakness you have is a scout's ability to track you, and that's kind of negated by the fact that they have 2 and you have 6, and they have to charge it back up to use it again. Like, eh. And then it just comes down to the matchups, like Jamie said. Timmy, do you see any weaknesses?
Uh, I'd prefer if good old hold person was ambulant to go in line with a lot of the other abilities. Um, but
It's
that could push it a little too far. But other than like just all the counters that are just built into the game to counter insubstantial in general, not really.
mhm.
They're not weaknesses; they're just counters which you need for
Game
any
balance.
class
Mhm.
ability.
I mean, you want to be aware of them. Like, you want to
Yeah.
be aware of the dimensional rift incant. You want to be aware of the
Oh
banish
God.
incant. But like, they're not destroying your class wholesale. I mean,
Yeah.
especially dimensional rift. It's only per refresh. There's no way to make it better
Yeah.
than that. Like, oh, it's per refresh charge times 10. Well, they're not going to use it more than 4 times, maybe max.
Yeah. And like banish isn't even that terrifying. It's like, ooh, you used one of my 6 insub abilities. I just get to go back to base. I'm so terrified.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tracking, on the other hand, can definitely, in the wrong situation, be very terrifying.
If it's used strategic, I mean, most abilities, if you use
Yeah.
them strategically, they're going to change. They're going to be fundamentally good. But tracking has that ability that if they are using it correctly, they're going to screw you over a little bit more than you could be prepared for if they're being tactically sound.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't usually use their G release on like an assassin necessarily.
Yeah.
It's better on cursed.
It,
Or
yeah.
I guess that's another
But
thing. Like,
it is a thing. Like, most people don't see they see the frozen warrior on their team as a higher priority than the run by assassin that's insubstantial. They'd rather get that warrior back up and running than take that assassin out of insubstantial with that per refresh ability. So
yeah.
it's a bit of a trade. Magnus, you see any weaknesses?
So, not a whole lot within the class kit itself. It does come down similar in a way that Jamie said, kind of like the matchups that you see,
Mhm.
Knowing when to go in and when not to go in, and are you able to take on what you see in front of you?
Mhm.
I'd say, this kind of also goes into play with like either common mistakes to avoid or the three like things that you wish you knew when you started playing Assassin.
Mhm.
When I first started playing, I definitely bit off more than I could chew on more than one occasion.
Mhm.
I mean, you can say that pretty much about any class, really, but there have been some matchups where it's like, oh, I can go in and win, and nope, I can't, and then I die. Um, they can be very, very good in one-on-one scenarios, but then there's other times where you just need to know. It comes down to having just a vast knowledge of the game overall, really,
Mhm.
of what can this person do or what can happen, or even down to your target. So some of you may know Steve, Tom Gutenberg,
Mhm.
very fast person.
Yep. Yep.
I charged at him one time, like, oh, I'm going to be able to reach him in time. Well, he's also very good at quick incants, and I got Icy Blast, and then I got Shattered. And, I was confident enough that I could have made it there first. Looking back on it now, it's like what I could have done is as an Icy Blast is going off, I could have Shadow Step,
Mhm.
gotten out, and then proceeded to chase after him.
Right.
But I didn't do that, and I died. So
I mean, that's
I would
just
say
experience then.
Blast kit itself, though.
Mhm. It's a well built class. I mean, there's
As Jamie said, they're thinking about doing buffs to it within the next one as well. And you're on
No.
mute. Yeah, there you go.
Not on this next
no
this
this
Or
stuff that's up right
V9 that
now.
I'm thinking
Yeah.
of
But
doing.
there's V9 is a joke. Just update V8, give us 8.5 or
Well,
8.7 or 8.8, whatever they want to call it.
They just asked the question in, I think, the most recent survey, what do you expect V9 to be? And one of the answers was V8.5. And I haven't got to see the results of that one yet because I'm not on the V9 committee. I'm just in some of the focus groups. But I'm guessing there's a decent chunk of people that are just like, we want V8.5. We don't want a whole new game set. We like V8.
It would be so hard to write a better game than what V8 is right now.
I mean, without professional like game designers that are
It
being
was such
paid.
Exactly. It was such a tremendous improvement from 7.7 that like maybe there's some improvements to be made, but that's an update.
Yeah.
Yeah.
V9 is like rewriting the whole game, and you're not going to rework it from where it's at right now
Mhm.
to be the same kind of impactful thing that 7.7 to V8 was.
Well, I really don't hope anybody expects that. That is
Well,
a
the amount of
huge
rewriting that
change.
V9 seems to be is pretty wild, at least from the
It's
stuff that I've seen. I'm just like,
it's a
too
lot
much.
of data from what I've seen is as much data like getting information as much as possible, finding out what people like, dislike, and I know there are some things that are going to be bigger changes if the focus groups are anything to go on. But other things are just like, it works. There's no reason to change it. Like, we like this and this and this. We just don't like this one aspect of it. So we're going to flip it and change it, and it'll, cascade to change this, and the other thing. But we're really only changing like the frozen state by a little bit, or only changing this little tweak or rule, whatever. So I think, in my opinion, I think V9 is going to be closer to a V8.5. But we'll see where they go, where Woon Joe decides to go with that whole deal. As he is the director of the whole V9 setup. Okay, so we are now on to the most important question, in my opinion, on this whole podcast, which is how to get better or stay good and not ruin people's fun. Because as Paragons, which was stated earlier by Magnus, we have to be pillars of information. We have to teach. We have to not make people feel like they're trash so that they go home and don't want to come back. We need people to come play our game so we can teach them to be better and potentially better than us. So how to get better, not ruin people's fun. Let's start with Timid on this one.
Well, I would say, even if someone's just not armored in between the legs, don't just always go for that sort of an attack.
Yep.
It can cause an unfun environment.
Mhm.
And then if you're at like a park level and you have a lot of new players, and if you were to do the focus on the uh easier targets too much, I could see that that could cause an issue with retention. But
Mhm.
that's like park level, and if you're just doing like a general game and you're not trying to like try hard at, it's not like it's Phoenix League
Right.
or like a big like kingdom event that you're actually like really trying to go for I guess some key points or something like that.
Yeah, you've got to
Yeah,
take
like
into context what this is.
yeah. Like also I guess the whole phrase of don't be a dick, because even if you can just like shoot someone at near point blank range with a pistol crossbow, it doesn't mean that you should, because it doesn't feel the most fun, and also it could probably hurt you if it bounces back and you don't have armor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think those are some of the main points there.
Lily, what are some ways to get better but not ruin people's fun, or stay good and not ruin people's fun?
So don't get too good in the first place. Like all kidding aside,
I mean,
the better you get, the less fun this game can become. I've made this joke several times, and it's more like it's more of a personal complaint, but that's definitely interesting when you start getting good enough to have people not want to play with you in general.
Mhm.
This is more like a Warlord Sword Knight issue, I guess, and one that I've experienced plenty of times where I don't get invited to stuff because it's not fun for some of these people that are very new. So, all joking aside, and in all seriousness, there is a certain level of skill that is great to achieve where you play well and you are proficient and you understand your skill and you know how to do this. And once you achieve that level of skill, if you continue to push, great. This I don't know what the number is, but there's a number somewhere where you then understand how to ruin people's fun.
Mhm.
So once you've established that you understand your class or your ability to play this game at that level, it's now time to turn it down a little for
Mhm.
those new players, at least for some of your day. And this is almost always a park issue because I have no problem going to kingdom events and showing out. That's what they're there for. If you go
Right.
travel across the country, it's to show out with your friends or to try to make your own name for yourself while you play and you want to look good. Like this is how you get notoriety. It's fun to feel like a badass. It's
Mhm.
fun to feel great at this thing that we do. I mean, we've all put a lot of time into this. And so when you're at your park level, which is where you primarily get your practice for, let's say, your class related stuff, one game. If there's going to be
Mhm.
3 games, play the one game hard. Okay. And then take a step back. You've got serious practice, cool. And now you can go and do the other part, which is uplifting the people around you or goofing around or role playing or teaching or all of that other stuff that helps increase your group's success rate.
Mhm.
That's where it's at. So if you find yourself at a position to go, wow, I'm really good at this and I can beat everybody, okay, it's time to take a step back. That's okay. Once in a while, sure, let it out. You want to practice so you're proficient when you go when it matters at Kingdom. But it
Mhm.
just doesn't matter at park level. Fun is what matters at park level.
Right.
And that's really hard if you are competitive to get away from.
Yes.
I've been there more than enough
Uh,
time where the competition is I've cared more about that than everything else. And at this point, it just doesn't matter. I even went so far as to ask my team, I'm like, hey, how much do we care about winning this game? What's our goal for the game? Are we trying real hard or what are we doing? Are we going to do this thing where we goof around? Like me and Noah, Megiddo, we will go questing in battle games. We make up our own quests and we tell the reef, hey, this game, ridiculous, but we're going to go do this quest and we're going to capture that person because that's their leader. That's not their leader. Well, it is now, and that's our goal. And sometimes even to the extent where we've brought no weapons and we've been like diplomats or we've had a crazy circus and we've given circus performer names to everybody on the other team and sucked them into our wandering show. You can find ways to make things crazy and fun and entertaining.
Yeah.
I I just can't stress it enough. So never get good, but be okay.
Be good enough to be okay, but never get too good.
Never get too good. Find that spot and you'll know what that spot is when you get there.
Yeah.
I think anyways, that's enough for me.
Mordecai, what are some ways to get better but not ruin people's fun?
So I originally wanted to abstain from this question just because of the amount of people that have told me that I've ruined their fun. But things that I've tried to do is purposely nerf myself. Fight left-handed.
Mm-hmm.
Fight with only 2 arrows. Fight with, you know, just throw your throwies out and then you can only throw them when you go and pick it back up. Um, I never really considered myself too competitive, but I wanted people to know that I was good at Assassin, so I did probably go a little overboard. Now that I've achieved that Paragon level, I could see what Lily was saying about, trying to make sure it's a lot more fun in the park level,
Mm-hmm.
so teaching people things, um, just keep current with what the class can do. I don't think there's anything else to say.
All right, and
That's the secret, though, right there.
What's that?
The secret is to build them up because then you get better. So, like, don't get me wrong.
Right.
I say, like, don't get too good, but my goal is to continuously grow no matter how good I've gotten. I want to continue to push it and to bring everybody up with you. That's the teaching part, right? You make everyone else great. You tell them how to beat you, like where you're weak or whatever. Now suddenly they can work on that and they can become better. That pushes you. And so you secretly are getting extra practice to become even better than you were by making that better.
All right, and Charlie, what are some things you want to get, or how to get better but not ruin people's fun?
Yeah, so the ways I've done it is kind of similar to what Morty had said. Is I will do games where it's like, all right, I'll have one game where I just do all archery. I'll have my one game where I go with my whole kit. But then another game I might say, all right, I'm just single sword, and I'll only do single sword. Or I'll bring 5 arrows out, and if I run out of arrows, I don't have a melee weapon. I have to scramble and use my hold persons and use my, all my kit to be effective. One that I was trying to consider to do, which I never got around to doing it, actually going in with 0 weapons, like finding an objective-based battle game at a park level and using just your, uh, your blink, your shadow step, your teleport, and use all of your insubstantial abilities to get around people and kind of spy stealth your way through without ever using a weapon.
Capture the
'Cause
flag, dog. That's where it's at.
Exactly. Like if you can do capture the flag, like we had one where it was Marshall, where it was just it was ring the bell, and I asked if I could go in with no weapons and ring the bell with my bare hands, and that was pretty dang fun. I managed to ring the bell a couple times too. But like all the things like that are ways that you can still challenge yourself and hopefully keep it fun for everybody else. And a lot of it does come into too, like it's fine to you don't have to take every single game at a park level seriously. Yes, showing that you're good at park. If you're at a level where you're already beating out your park, then it comes down to yeah, if you can consistently beat out your park, yeah, cool it down. If you're not at a level where you can beat out your park yet, then you really shouldn't have anything to worry about because you still have competition there. But once you get near the top areas, then tone yourself down a bit. And I do believe, yes, teaching at that point, similar to what we already touched on as well, teaching, getting people to improve, especially if they ask you. Timing does come down though. I had a game where somebody got upset. I had killed them a couple of times, and I came up and I was like, "Hey, like this is what I did, this and this," and they didn't want to hear it right at that point. Like they're like, "No, I don't need to hear this right now," and got kind of mad at me. And it's like, "Oh yeah, I just beat this person a few times, and now it's probably not the good time to be like, well, if you did this," but I talked to them maybe an hour or two after the battle, and we talked about it and more receptive stuff like that too.
I mean
Yeah,
that
you use it as a time to teach people, get better, you get better. Give yourself certain challenges to make the game more challenging upon yourself is what I've seen as ways to improve.
right. And if someone gets in that position that they are frustrated with you keep killing them, or you keep doing a combo, or you keep doing something that leads them to frustration or death or whatever, if you are that person getting frustrated, the best way to find out how to beat that is go ask that person. 99% of the time, they know exactly how to defeat that thing that they're using on you. Like, I guarantee right now, if I kept getting killed by Jamie's fake to the top and then board side hip, which he likes doing, I can ask him, all right, how do I stop that? And you know exactly what I need to do to make it not happen. And then
There's
you
a
know
bunch
the answer to beat it again.
Oh no, Jamie tells me that. He still gets me with it. And now Ty is doing it to me. Thanks, Jamie.
Night stuff. No, I mean, so what we did touch on here though was our perspective at a high skill level or presumed high skill level, right, quote unquote,
Mhm.
of how to not ruin park days. But I don't know that it's necessarily the people that have gotten to this level, because we all generally understand what is or isn't going to make someone's day suck. What really matters here is when you're on the come up and how to do this while you're still growing and not making it bad. Because my advice for all of us would be like, yes, we should play down some, sure, very presumptuous of our skill levels, but whatever. We still also have to have fun. This is a thing that we do for recreation and entertainment. And at a certain point, like, it isn't very entertaining to go out and be like, well, okay, I guess I'm just gonna play with a single sword and get shot by like 18 arrows and hit by all the pole arms. And, that can become frustrating, which then makes it unfun for you, which then may lead to people taking it out on other people and having a bad day. And that's obviously not what we want to do. So just remember to have fun. And the advice I would give to the young kids that are trying to push to get better is don't overdo the sneaky ass assassin things. And what that ends up being is where they walk around the edge of battle with their head down, like they're not playing or not involved or they're dead or like who fucking knows what they're doing. And then they come up behind you and hit you and run away or do whatever, or bragging or laughing about this kill that they got. It's dishonorable-ish, right? We're all playing the same game. Like, I've done it plenty of times where I look at the guy, and what I really should do personally in my mind is just ask them, hey, are you in game or are you alive? But when they're out of bounds or out of what seems to be the boundary of the game, it's weird to ask them like, hey, bro, what you doing over there by the camp chairs? It gets kind of weird, so you just ignore them. You go and do your thing and you get killed. And that can be very frustrating. So like, I'm not saying don't do it, because superior flanking and sneaky stuff is part of the game, but just know that does irritate people on the field and may drive them to have less fun. Do it a couple times, sure. Do it to a couple different people, maybe not always the same target, like Charlie's pointed out. It's just something to keep in mind, and that's on the come up, because I think people on the come up need to play hard. They need to practice this if they want to push themselves to get better. It's not so much about restraining all of ourselves here in this chat, and more about like, how does the person on the come up not wreck their marks?
There's a certain level of self like realization when you hit that point. Like, I know definitely for at least a month or so, I was playing way too hard of a bard at Ice Haven. Ice Haven's not a big park. We only had a couple people that were really going hard, and I definitely was playing too hard for that level of park, and I didn't realize it. And it takes a certain point, and I think you have to go past it. You're going to make some people mad for a little bit before you find out, oh, I am actually to a certain level, unless you're really cocky. If you're really cocky, you think you're there now.
There's a few people like that, I'm sure.
Yeah. But if you're going to make people mad for a little bit, and you have to realize what you're doing to make them mad. Like, if you're controlling the field really well because you understand battlefield strategies and tactics, and you're able to move around the field and pick and choose targets to, fundamentally destroy their team, maybe tone it down a bit, or don't be the one to do those things yourself. Go get someone else to do it. Get the new player to be the hero. Like, if you realize, hey, if we take out that healer now, the team will fall apart. Hey, new kid, go. And just like, let new players get experience and practice and the ability to feel like the hero, the big damn hero, because that's ultimately what a lot of people want. And it's great when you can give that opportunity to people, especially when you get to like help them do it. you get to run alongside them and protect them a little bit and make them definitely the big damn hero while you're, sidekick number one. But
Got to celebrate the success of the people around you so
Yes.
that they can feel great about what they're doing. Because again, ultimately, fun and recreation. They're here to have a good
Mhm.
time. I mean, honestly, it really is nobody's responsibility when it gets down to it. Like, it's not anyone here's job to make sure a random person they don't know has a good time.
Mhm.
In reality,
Yeah.
The whole knighthood thing would say otherwise, and at that point, like, there's some obligation to uphold that. But at the grand scheme of things, it really isn't. But that's now fun.
Yeah.
So let's build everybody up. It's more fun.
Make everyone have some fun. Okay. Now on to a question that we've been touching on for the whole podcast, and it's one that I don't have an answer to. Like, in all honesty, it's a question that frustrates me, but cursed is not taken correctly. I want to say 60% of the time. Like, I feel like it's taken incorrectly more than half the time, and it's just not. People just get cursed and then forget about it or don't care about it. And especially in those games where it really matters, life pool games and games where people need to be resurrected, it matters a lot. And we need to find a way to make it be taken more correctly. What's your guys' take on this whole fact that you guys have an ability that is straight up being ignored a decent chunk of the time? Let's start with Magnus.
You're muted.
Thank you. So I think I at a park level, I don't really see curse not being taken correctly. I'd even argue that, even at larger park levels or like park meet days, like large events that are not Kingdom yet, I don't see it happen as much. At Kingdom, I can say that I have seen it happen here and there. I'm not sure how big of an issue it is, because usually if I'm in an area where I'm assassinating people, unless I shoot somebody within 20 feet, I'm running. Like, I'm running away. I'm usually doing a hit and run or doing some sort of thing. And a lot of this goes on to the hope of, well, I hope these people are honorable. And beyond that, it also comes on the hope of, I hope these people know the rules of the game. It shouldn't be the assassin's job to police other people's actions with how they take something, whether or not they take it. It technically shouldn't. Not saying that it doesn't happen, though, because I have seen it happen a few times. I think a good way to go about doing it is you yell assassinate, and you can say something like assassinate cursed. I think Jamie touched on it earlier, like assassinate you're cursed, or something along those lines, so that they know that you just applied a status effect on them. You aren't just saying assassinate for the fun of it to be like, haha, I got you. It's
Right.
No, this has an actual game effect. You are cursed. You just became significantly harder to res, and you just really got to hope that that player takes it. I have seen on a few occasions, and the occasions I've seen, I can count on one hand, and usually, like, the healer will run up and swift res the person, or they'll summon them, swift res, do whatever, and you can just yell, no, I cursed them. Sometimes, the healer didn't see that the person was cursed, and they're running up trying to make a play, and they'll do a swift res, and then sometimes I've seen one where the player that I killed kind of gave a look and then ran off, like a look at the healer. And other times I've seen it where somebody's like, no, I'm cursed. You gotta do something else. I'm not sure how big of a problem it is, though. I personally don't see it as much of a problem, and I think it's something that just comes down to people understanding the rules, people maintaining honor, and it not really being my place to determine whether or not they're being honorable. It's on them, on the Reeves, on whatever. If I'm actively playing in the battle game, it's hard sometimes because you can kill somebody, but it's hard to be like, I shouldn't actively be making calls on the field if I'm not a Reeve.
Right. And I don't think this is people ignoring it on purpose the majority of the time.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't think it's malicious at all.
Like, just straight up forgetting they were assassinated. Because it is such a commonplace thing when there's a lot of assassins on the field every time an assassin kills somebody within 20 feet, they normally
Yeah.
should be assassinated. So it's like a commonplace thing, but it should be more actively taken or actively remembered. Mordecai, what are your thoughts?
Well, I wonder if saying it so often in the game, if it just sort of makes, people just kind of, okay, he's just saying,
Mm-hmm.
like it's almost like you say it so often that they should realize that it has some sort of ability, some sort of effect, obviously. But again, you say it so often. I mean, is there people who say it right after they hit people, like, and it doesn't actually even trigger? So
Mm-hmm.
making sure that the person is dead, looking at them, saying assassinate right in front of them, those are things I've tried before. But Magnus said it too. I don't really see it being an issue at park level. It's more just the really big games when there's so much chaos going on anyway.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good question, Merrick. I'd like to know what these other two have to say.
Dimit?
'Cause-
Okay, I think there's like a few potential issues. So one of them can lead into like a whole nother discussion, which would be deaths don't always matter in a lot of games.
Yes.
So if you don't have something where you have like a middle ground of 45 seconds or something like that for all deaths, or some like life count thing where actually healers are like useful in resurrecting, and you just go run back, you like tag the thing and you count to like 10 and you're back,
Mm-hmm.
like you're not interacting with that particular ability. The cursed state is only really affecting things like maybe let's say a warrior um at that point. So it's not necessarily clicking in people's heads is one thing that I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And also another like line of frustration is potentially an issue with communication between whomever you are at least attempting to kill, because it might not be completely obvious like, okay, did you die? Am I just going to hit you and say assassinate in preemptive things of expecting you to die, um where someone might not necessarily be as obvious to try to make sure you get that kill trigger off,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that also comes to like if there are 4 or 5 people beating on someone,
Hmm.
who was the final kill? That
Yeah,
player has to make that call, and that's sometimes really tricky.
even like with like wounds kill, if you're trying to do a wounds kill thing on someone, so you like go throw and you're trying to do like let's say like a wrap shot for like their look seemingly exposed forearm,
Mm-hmm.
but they get the block and it feels like a hit, but you just say like wounds kill assassinate. If you don't actually hit them, your wounds kill ability doesn't go off and you wouldn't have killed them. You still have
Mm-hmm.
your poison and stuff like that, but it's like situations like that where I could see some person nearby that wouldn't necessarily like know how the interactions are supposed to play out, expect maybe think that assassins are just saying assassinate just to say assassinate if they haven't read that. But
Right.
like those two things I feel would be kind of two of the more root problems that could then lead into behavior at like kingdom events and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Lily, what's your take on it?
So it's all about like perception, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say how often someone's cheating you in general, whether it's intentional or unintentional, and that's even just in fighting, right? So at this stage in my personal amp guard career, I try to look at it like there's just a certain level of things that get missed, whether it's on purpose or not, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't care whether it was purposeful or not purposeful because it's just part of the thing that we do because we're all human and we're not a computer game.
Mm-hmm.
That shit's just gonna happen that way. Um, do I think that stuff is missed? Absolutely. Do I think the amount is 60%? Maybe. Maybe not. It's hard to say. I have no math, right? The perception seems
Mm-hmm.
like it's probably worse than it actually is. If I had to say what I thought, I think it's probably not that bad. But um, it also just depends, man. It's a harmless cheat. Like I got assassinated, I didn't get assassinated. Eh, anyways, it's I can see where it's just like that's
Mm-hmm.
not that big a deal. I'm not like like what's that really do? Like I'm just not getting rezzed. I still my armor's still gone. Like what does this actually affect really if I got the resurrect? Or people just don't correct the healer when they've rezzed them. They're like, well,
Right.
they already used their abilities. It's not that big a deal. Like
Yeah.
whatever. I'll just keep going. I'll play. So if they are intentionally doing it, it's a pretty like yes, it's a very powerful ability, and in some game types it can be very damning, but it's not every time. Like in the same some graph somewhere showing like, well, how many times you actually play a life game that matters, and then how
Yeah.
many people aren't actually taking it, and then how many of it's like accidental, and then it's just this. It's almost too stressful to worry about it, in that regard. So like I think to help mitigate it, like everybody said, we basically are just like saying, whatever, wounds kill, assassinate, you are cursed. And if they
Mhm.
don't acknowledge it, you can try to be a little more like, hey, you're cursed, whatever. Or, maybe they acknowledge it, maybe they don't, maybe you make eye contact, maybe you don't. At park level, I've seen it missed tons when we had our regular somewhere between 30 and 60 people every weekend
Mhm.
because it's piles of new people who just have no idea. Or we get piles of cross gamers that are coming from the DAG group and they just don't know because they didn't bother to read the rule book, or maybe they looked at it once, however long ago, and
Yeah.
they don't care. They might ask, like, "What does that do?" I'm like, "Oh, you're cursed. What does that do?" I'm like, it turns into this long conversation. I'm like, "You just can't get rest, bro. Okay, don't worry about it." Or
Mhm.
just tell them you are cursed when you get to your spawn,
Mhm.
and that lets them go back and they're like, I'm cursed. And hopefully the person who's been playing long enough knows, and it's less conversation while still getting the point across. Or they don't care and they just get rezzed anyways, like, okay, cool.
Mhm.
Thanks. Sweet. And they keep going, and it just doesn't matter too much. So is it a rampant issue? Probably, but it's unlimited, so who cares? It's different than like fight after death. Right, like, if we wanna make a good
Yeah.
comparison or an interesting comparison, if I use my fight after death and I'm, let's say, courteous, and someone gets kinda bowled over in the thing, and I stop my count at, like, 2, 1, 2, oh, Jimmy, are you okay? I'm so sorry that you fell down, let me check on you. Okay, I'm
Mhm.
gonna return to play. Oh, well, you stopped counting, so you're fucked on my twice per game per
Yeah.
refresh ability. That is aggravating. That blows. Assassinate? Who gives a shit? I'll just assassinate him again. It just like if we're being super frank about this, like it doesn't matter. I can do it as much as I want. Whereas other abilities and other classes are much more damning if they get cheated or not taken or something goofs up. You're being a decent human being.
Right.
Or whatever the case is, or somebody pulls some stunts. I think I talked about this in the Barbarian one where a guy went in a fight after death, and Megiddo had told a young impressionable amp guarder, this guy, that you should hug him if he goes into fight after death and ask if they're okay. And when they get when they stop counting, you make it like, whoa, bro, are you okay? Are you okay? You were so mad. You were just yelling and counting. And they go, we know I'm good. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Well, you broke your count. Sorry. And then you go back and fight. I did that at Known World War, like their
Oh
first one,
no.
something like that. It was hilarious. Now, don't get me wrong. Is it okay? Well, not really, but it was pretty funny. Uh, you know, and so anyways, the point is that like that's much more damning. They get 2 of those. That's pretty shitty. Assassin is just not in the same grade. I think that's probably why I don't care, because who cares? I could just do it a million times, as many times as I want. It's
Mhm. So the reason I thought about it is because I've played backline a lot, especially doing battery bard. I'll sit in that healer pool of resurrects, and the time that people come back and say, "Hey, I'm cursed," the amount of times that happens is a lot less than I expect, especially knowing who's on the field and the amount of, like, even if we're just giving like, "Hey, 1 out of every 12 people coming back should be cursed because they were killed by an assassin." That's a really
sure.
like average stat. That's not happening, and it's just
Yep.
I-
Oh
like
no,
it,
and you're probably totally right, and that's something that we don't see in the middle of the field, how many
right.
are actually doing it, and but you don't also see how many times I've failed to say
True.
assassinate, right? I've screwed it up, or maybe I'm out of range, or maybe someone else got the kill, right? So
Yeah.
it's hard to it's just so hard to say
It's
what the actual number is, but you're probably right. We have interesting math on this.
Well, and that's what I like, because our game is all, or not all, but majority of our stuff is in our head. We don't see, like drained skin and like dark veins coming off of you as cursed, or we don't have any of that thing. We don't have a little strip or anything that you apply to yourself if you're cursed, just to remind yourself. We don't have any of those things. And
So we need augmented reality. Okay.
while
Sure.
we all want that, that's in the future. We'll
Yeah,
wait for that later.
that would
Yeah, make all you assholes have to wear headgear like me. Perfect. Welcome to my world.
I like your headgear. I'm a fan of
Yeah.
women's lacrosse helmets.
Hey man, the ladies got it right on this one. And I've been growing out this ponytail so I can stick it through the ponytail slots. It's gonna be awesome.
With
Look
the
like one of
ponytail
those Roman.
slots?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
do.
they do.
They do.
That sounds awesome.
It can be like a Roman centurion or whatever with the dumb horsetail. I think that's right. I don't know history. I'm just
I got-
making at this point.
I got enough hair. I could do that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
It would be interesting for Assassinate to add time onto someone's death count.
Ooh.
ooh. So I've thought about that. Like changing the way cursed works so that people remember it. Because currently it's just a, hey, resurrect doesn't work on you. And especially in our quick battle games and most of the battle games that happen at Park, resurrect doesn't happen. It's mostly just respawning because we want to keep fast, quick games. So those new players aren't trained to the aspect of, hey, I've been cursed. I need to tell someone if they try to res me or try to even summon dead me, because that's a spirit spell. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And remembering what it does, because there is a lot of cursed that comes out on the field. Assassinate, super easy. Brutal Strike is one that's applied pretty readily. You've got several enchantments that apply it, which I think are taken more often because you have to remember that it's there. But I don't know. I'd love to see like a tally, like just one of the Keep on the Battle games. We say, hey, if you have cursed, please count how many times you applied it, and then we'll also keep track of how many times people have taken it at respawn, and just find out like a general statistic on it. But that's
Interesting. You could even have healers encouraged to ask, like, did an assassin kill you? You know, that's not
Right.
perfect, but it would start giving them like, okay, now there's actually a chance that this person was cursed. And it could go the next step, like, what did they assassinate you? And now that's more work for the backline healer, who obviously is already busy doing their backline healer thing.
mhm.
But in this format where you're talking about trying to get this data, it would be interesting to get the healers involved, the assassins involved, and you could start small scale with just like an individual or a couple individuals that purposely went out and played assassin with the sole purpose of trying to get
Get
assassination
that data.
kills.
Yeah.
It would be interesting. I mean, I'm down, but I'm over here, so it doesn't really help.
I mean, I could just like ping some people around the country, be like, hey, keep track, and then ping. I don't know. It takes a little bit of work to do it, but I'd be interested seeing how those numbers work out.
Mhm.
I like data. That's me though. I love
Yeah.
fucking data from
Without data,
everything.
Captain Picard would have never made it. Just saying.
Yeah.
Boomer jokes. I'm old.
Yeah. I don't.
Yeah.
You're like, what, 32, 33?
32.
Did you
Had to
just
do
have to do math?
I thought I was 31 like for all of this year. I am not apparently.
You just
I just
didn't
knew that
count
you're 2 to 3
2020.
years older than me, depending on the time of year.
Yeah,
Um,
my mother came to visit and was like, "You're 32," and I was like, "Oh,
Oh God.
COVID."
2020
Weird.
didn't count. Okay. Let's move on to
Yep.
audience questions. Unless anybody has anything more on the cursed dilemma state. I don't know. All right. So audience questions. Audience, if you would like to ask a question, please just unmute yourself and ask. This up so I can actually see anybody else we have. Oh, it looks like we have a Maddox. If Maddox has a question, otherwise we will move on to the constructive spicy takes. So Maddox, you got any questions?
Nope.
I will have a comment. Then why not?
Uh-huh.
It was from something earlier. I can't remember exactly what question because we've been here for 3 hours, but it was something along the lines of like how to improve, and improving your stick skill improves your general ability to play the class, and that's pretty much solid across every single class, right? You
Mhm.
got to be good at fighting to do it. I think assassin, however, is one of the special cases where new players can shine without a lot of stick skills, since being sneaky and doing that is so powerful.
Mhm.
Getting those skills from behind means you don't have to necessarily be so good at that if you're really good at positioning and understanding the other parts of your abilities to get into a position to backstab somebody or to run objectives, as Charlie's pointed out.
Mhm.
We've had some kids that are just like phenomenal track stars, not good at fighting at all, to where they've thrown down their sticks because they're like, well, I'm not good at this, but I can run. So they get the point and they're the flag or whatever, and they just sprint their way around. So it is interesting that I think it's one of the, not exceptions, but it's one that you can get away with being a little less stick heavy, because of the throwing weapons or shooting a bow, or just there's so many options on how to play it in a way that you can be successful. I just thought that was kind of neat, a little contrary to the norm of get good at stick fighting to be successful.
Right.
It is fun to play Track Star.
Here we go. I guess we're running again.
Just run.
I'm just saying.
Oh no,
great.
yeah, it's
Like
it
I'm
is-
260 and I can run pretty fast, and it's fun as heck.
well, you
It's-
get all that, you get that weight in motion, and it just keeps going.
That's right, man. That's how I keep my legs nice and strong. Yeah, carry all this extra weight.
just keep
Oh, Dizzy
running.
does it, man. Dizzy just gets going. He never stops.
Just keep sprinting.
Big boy.
Do we have any constructive spicy takes? I say constructive because my first episode had spicy takes and some of them were not constructive. So we're going to go with constructive spicy takes on either Paragon, Assassin, whatever.
Sure, I'll go.
Okay.
We already touched on it before. I know this is going to be a mini sparring match between Jamie and I about it, but that's okay. Armor. Jamie's pro armor. I'm very much in the there's so many outlets in the rules as written right now in our game. There's so many outlets to magic armor
Mm-hmm.
that is seamless, 0 gaps, 0 weight, so I have extra mobility.
Mm-hmm.
Has the same value as 2-point armor.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it can even make me pro flame if people want to be extra spicy with it and hand me an iron skin.
Yep.
Or you can go lycanthropy, and now I have I forget if it's breaking or crushing. I know it's one or the other. I'm always bad
Lycanthropy
at
is
the
shield.
definitions. There we go. I know it's shield, but I always forget if it's break or crush for the term. But yes.
Mm-hmm.
Having magical armor in our game right now that can be mended makes armor as a whole weaker. I would fully agree with Jamie if we change how magic armor works to then actually go out and buy myself a good set of 2-point armor. Right now, however, there's so many advantages to magic armor that I really do not see a need to wear it. I wore armor once on my path to Paragon, and it was really hot. And I said, "Yeah, no, not worth it. I'm just gonna put on ghillie suit or put on my garb and have my friendly druid friend over here give me, lycanthropy or bark skin or stone skin or iron skin, and I'm just as well off that way." And it hadn't been an issue at all.
Oh, yeah.
That's my whole constructive spicy take is hopefully from this. I actually hope that magic armor gets a nerf. Like, we need to hit it with some sort of nerf bat. Because as it is right now, it's hard to compete with.
I mean, you're probably right to some extent. Like, I don't really disagree with you on magical armor being this very versatile and powerful thing that you can do, especially on the classes that don't break like 2 points of armor, right? It's
Mhm.
hard to compete with 2 points of armor and some additional effects that make them very powerful. And you're talking about seamless, no gaps, etc. It's not as hot, blah blah blah. Lots of positives. But I think there's unseen or less, unless you think about it, positives to physical armor that for me outweighs some of the idea of wearing magical armor. One, well, okay, first off, I have to go and find a druid buddy who wants to give me enchantments in the first place,
Mhm.
right? I'm now subjected to the ability to get dispelled, and that can absolutely bone you while you're out in the field, and then you got to get the enchantments again, which means it's a lot of running back and forth, and you're just out of combat longer while you're re-getting enchanted or dealing with that, or you have to stop your press because you may get disenchanted in the middle of doing something that you're doing. So like there's just another thing to be mindful of outside of I'm just wearing my armor and they basically can't affect it. I mean, it's not totally true. I guess I could get pyrotech next, right, and have all my equipment
Yeah.
destroyed.
Mhm.
But
I mean,
that's like one very specific thing, and like, okay, the other like small bonus, like let's say you build a kit that is very comfortable and that is for you, and this isn't what everybody wants to do because not everybody's crafty and not everyone wants to make their own armor. And like, I get it, I've been here now and I have made my own armor and it's still kind of hodgepodge of whatever, but some of it is stellar.
Mhm.
My lamellar brig thing that I made with Noah that ends up being like 5 points weighs 4 pounds. And like, okay, who cares? I can wear it for whatever class I need to wear it for, and it's spectacular. It's stellar.
Mhm.
Doesn't really weigh anything. It disperses the heat just fine. No big deal. And what it really does do, and this is one of those hidden benefits, is when I get stabbed hard in the stomach or the chest with a pole, I don't care. I had Noah hit me with a it's like a 24-ounce hammer to test the armor, and I'm like, okay, cool. So like, it's a small benefit. It's not like an actual functional benefit that makes it better necessarily than magical armor. However, if you get heaved in the balls and you weren't wearing armor, or
That's
heaved in the,
fair.
or heaved in the solar plexus or something, it may stop your press. Whereas physical armor actually does what it's supposed to and protects you from harm to some degree, depending on how it's built and blah blah blah. And in this case, I've
Mhm.
made the armor to do the thing that it's supposed to do, and I don't have to stop moving forward when I get stabbed by this pole. I can push through the pole on my chest
Mhm.
because who cares, you know? And that's something that is an unthought about or not necessarily seen advantage over like magical armor that I personally like. Again, I agree with you. Magical armor is stellar and probably has more obvious benefits, just like you've listed here between like Proflame, etc.,
Yeah.
Ancestral, etc.,
Yeah.
Mendable, etc. Like, and it probably does need a nerf, like really. Um,
Yeah.
but there are some things about armor that are pretty neat, and even just protecting yourself from physical harm. I keep getting hurt. The armor has saved me on I think several occasions from some people that are swinging like freight trains. So like just my wrists and things like that when I'm actually wearing armor with real coverage,
Mhm.
which is kind of cool. Again, it is hot. It can be heavy. I've got like a 40-pound thing of chainmail that I don't wear because it's 40 pounds and it's awful. I would never suggest it. But I have it and it's a thing and it's, yay. But
So
anyways, that's my only small counter. And it's not even a counter. It's just a
yeah,
thing to be mindful of if you
Mhm.
were going to make the decision. Because you know what sucks about physical armor? I have to travel with it.
It
It's a
just
pain in the
yeah.
ass.
yeah, can see
Like
that.
that's a negative. Like that's like if I have to go out of state or something, like let's say I fly, I'm not taking my armor. Like most of the time I have done it before, but like it sucks. That's a whole nother bag. That's more money. It's a never ending cost. So
Mhm.
Yeah, I think.
It's
Oh, sorry. I think for the argument of dispel, I think dispel specifically on a Paragon, unless you see like a druid dressed up like Macho Man Randy Savage with all the strips on them that where they can do the super quick one. If you have enough awareness, you should be able to pop into some insubstantial state.
well, and and I agree with you mostly on this. However, we got to talk about like the average player, right?
Yeah. No, I
And
hear you, and it would still stop your press because then you're still spending time
popping in and
hopping
out.
into insubstantial and then hopping out. So you are right on the press part, but
or you got to
didn't mean to cut you off there. I wanted to make sure I
no,
finished part of my thought before I forgot.
no, and I again, I don't necessarily think you're wrong. There are pros and cons to saying, well,
Yeah.
they're going to dispel me. Do I just continue to go forward and get them while they're casting? I might get
Mhm.
dispelled anyways, but that can almost trap a spellcaster into wanting to finish the dispel more so than their life. And there could be some pros and cons to getting people to use their spells on you that they may not have used otherwise had you not been wearing magical armor.
There's I mean, so currently I think the break point of our version of magical armor versus physical armor is too high. If I think magic armor should break point closer to 2 points or 1 point than the benefits of physical armor and stuff, because currently most people don't want to make or take physical armor unless it's like 4 points or more. So warriors, obviously physical armor all day long. Barbarians sometimes, but they can't get enchantments, so they're more common. Scouts when I do see them on the field, it's still a lot more often they are not wearing all their armor and things like that, because it is a weightless, seemingly free, a lot of benefits magic armor. A lot of the initial benefits seem better than the downfalls of the physical armor. And mechanically, like if we're just looking at how physical armor versus magical armor works in our game, mechanically, physical armor and magical armor are almost the same thing, besides like, hey, this weighs nothing, or mechanically this can be dispelled and changed, but also have extra effects tossed on it, almost easier than something with physical armor. But the physical armor does come back with every single life you get back, which is repeatability of use, especially if you're taking a lot of deaths. If it's a game that you know you're gonna die, come back, that physical armor is gonna make itself worth it. Like even 1 point, I've got a Gambison that is guaranteed 1 point, sometimes 2 points, and like I'll toss that on most of the time because it's just a vest, but that's 1 point on my chest that gets me where I need to go. It's just enough to get me there.
An argument I was going to make was for physical armor. If you're going a ranged class, that's going to be primarily a bow user. Having 1 point armor just to stop enemy arrows can be worth the investment.
Mm-hmm.
Can confirm 1 point is great.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the argument. It's either 1 or 4 or don't bother.
Yeah, I mean,
or what, like why wear anything other than a Gambison like at 1 point if you can't, you're just gonna get crushed or braked or arrowed or whatever. There's a school of thought for this. I don't know that I totally agree with that school of thought, because more points means that Throwy didn't take all my points, or the random hit from the random kid who was behind me didn't kill me, or take my only set of armor. But there's something to be said about it, 4 or more, or 1 or less, or 1 or none, or whatever.
Yeah.
Unless you have Ancestral.
Unless you've got Ancestral, sure, but
and
then you have to get Ancestral, and it's like, I guess if you're playing Warrior, why
there's
only
more uses of ancestral magical armor than there are of ancestral armor that you can hand off to someone with physical armor. So it automatically makes the magic armor feel like it has an advantage, because most of the time you get it, it has ancestral, or it has extra benefits just thrown on top, like, hey, you're immune to command, go fuck up a bard. Like it's I think it needs to be nerfed. I like the proposed change of mend does not work on magic armor.
I dig that idea a lot.
It just fundamentally changes that mend doesn't work. Greater mend still works. Spodoinkle still works, or that's word of mending.
They were going to do it. Okay. I guess the only thing I would feel bad about is like Avatar in Nature. And not that like it just hurts it quite a bit, right? Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like a lot. Like it's been so long since I've even bothered to look at Druid or think about Druid, basically, when I went, okay, this is probably the best class in the game. I'm just gonna avoid that and be a hipster and not play it. It's been too long, so I couldn't tell you what actually affects it at this point and how they can affect themselves to play Avatar Nature, and assuming they can even still mend themselves. I guess I don't know at this point. It's been too long.
Especially, but it would also, the other thing that it would really affect would be Buddy Druid.
Oh yeah, that would screw that up.
Buddy Druid would be like the primary, like if you wanted something that's like absurdly broken Druid related, Buddy Druid, because then you circumvent all of the limitations of self-casting enchantments on yourself by just saying, all right, hey, other level 6 Druid, we're both running this list. Excellent. I cast this on you, you cast this on me. We all have our stack of mends that we can just mend ourselves, and you just go to town.
Yeah, so I guess like it's not super rampant. Again, good dispel players can handle a lot of this anyways. Like there are answers to the druids and the fact that dispel is so strong, or naturalized magic or whatever. I guess another druid gets to laugh at druids who are doing it. But
can confirm fun.
It's a lot of resources into one person that can get negated by like a singular spell, and they're putting a ton of resources across 2 players to do this thing. I'm like, why? At a certain point, I don't know that. Like, I guess I agree, mend probably needs to be nerfed. And I guess the point I was going to get is maybe a little rework on how this works in general. Instead of just like messing up mend, maybe you just rework Druid a little bit. and find a way to make them able to still play this avatar nature without having to suffer the, oh well, cool, I can't actually mend myself or get mended by anybody.
Well, so the
You know.
wizards and druids get greater mend. Wizards or druids get word of wizards might also get it as well. They get the better mends. And those would still function. Not that they're going to be as usable, because it's I mean, they're still usable. It's just going to be different, because greater mend is all points in one location get fixed. Instead of doing that like a warrior of being like, hey, your breastplate goes from 0 to 6 now, it's, hey, your breastplate goes from 0 to 2, which is different but not as
Feels
effective.
real bad.
It does kind of, and I mean, like at some points, Badoink word of mending is even worse. It feels like, if you're not utilizing it to get as much things fixed, because it is a big spell.
I guess I've just had a different experience with it. Like, I've never felt like, oh man, this magical armor is running rampant all over the place, and there's just like no answer. Blah blah
Yeah.
blah. Like, it's just this unbeatable
There
thing.
are
It's
answers that you're 100% right. DMAG
like
is rampant.
I mean, at Park Day, it's very at a park level, it's very easy to go, okay, they're playing this. I guess I'm just gonna, I make sure somebody that is playing can do this. And even then, the person designing the games, if I'm running the games, I need to balance this in a way where they have an answer for them. And if they don't, if no one's running Dispel Magic of any kind, any way to get rid of these enchantments, I go, hey guys, this person's playing this. Do you want to rework your list a little bit so we can balance this? Because otherwise, this is what's going to happen, and you can all see that it's going to happen.
Right.
I'm being transparent for you. This isn't some sneaky gotcha moment. I hate that. Like, this is what they're doing. Would you like to do something about that? Yes or no? No? Okay. Well, then they're going to do their thing. They're going to have fun. And you guys are going to get destroyed by this guy because you didn't bring any answers. I mean, I don't know.
Also, a lot of other classes have CC that you could just permanently make them not be able to do anything. So even if you don't have DMAG, that's like another thing. But that's like an answer to most things, and another reason why Druid's really strong.
I mean,
Yeah.
Druid has the same synergy with itself that Warrior has with itself, which is a much more complicated feat, because Druid is a caster, and there are so many options on how to build that class, and they're all really pretty good. Like, there's only one or two ways to build it wrong, and it's still effective. There are definitely ways to build a healer so it's useless. Like, it literally gets 4 spells. Like, there's a way to do that. There's a way to do it. You can't do it with Bard, but you can do it with Wizard and Healer. You can literally build a caster that gets like 4 spells total, and that's all they get because their subclasses or their archetypes restricted them too much. Druid doesn't really have that. Like, even if you do the all of the combo, if you for some reason do Ranger, Summoner, Avatar, Nature, you still get a handful of spells. You still get weapons. You still get like, it's weird, but it works technically.
It just probably needs a small rework, like, realistically. I don't know what the answer is again. Like, at this point, COVID plus not playing it for so many years out of the loop.
I mean,
like,
is it nerfing Druid, or is it bringing everything else up to that level of synergy?
I feel like Druid is one of the tippy top classes in the whole game, arguably between, I mean, I love Assassin, so I like to put it up there.
It's good.
But like, Warrior and Druid is the things, and again, Warrior, we talked about this before. I think Warrior gets the backseat to it because it needs Enlightened Soul to compete at the same level that Druid can do on its own by itself, basically.
Kinda, yeah.
Where they get to run around. I mean, that's how I look at it. They have so many options and so many ways that they can play this class, that like, Warrior is cool, but if they don't have Enlightened Soul, Druid beats them. Like, that you just icy blast them into oblivion. They don't get to play anymore.
Kinda,
like,
yeah.
Congratulations. Like, you're not
him.
like, so that's my point. Now, in this matchup, this class destroys the other class unless the other class has help.
Mm-hmm.
It's just okay, cool. So Druid's number 1 in my opinion for that basic reason. And then it's like Warrior, and then I like Assassin, so I'd probably put Assassin as third. But
it is effective. It's synergistic with itself. Its low armor is probably its only like downfall. Not quite. It's just a balance point for it. Like, it's not as widespread destructive as Druid is, because Druid literally is the best class, but Druid counters itself, so
which is funny.
it's
I
like,
mean, but top classes do that. That's even like in card games.
yeah.
Like, some of the top decks counter each other, which is hilarious. It depends on the game that you're playing, but
Mhm.
I know that we're sort of like into the weird off-topic part of this thing, which is why I'm like just kind of rambling about the other shit now. But Bard would probably be 3 realistically, except the skill cap on this is so high.
Yeah.
So I'd say that Bard has to be 4 or 5, because the micromanaging you have to do of yourself to be an effective Bard is stupid ridiculous. Like,
So
there's
are
no
we-
autopilot for Bard.
Well, if we compare it to like a League of Legends champion or whatever, or Magic or something, like the top thing is still the top thing if you can utilize it being the top thing,
Sure.
and Bard can do that if you have the skill to do it, but I
Ye-
think the majority of people don't, and that would
Yeah.
make it less good. I think that's, but
I think Barbarian suffers from the opposite. There's so many people playing Barbarian that aren't
Yeah.
good at it, that when people are good at Barbarian, people are like, how did you do that with a class that's bad? It's like, it's not really, it's not great, but it's not that bad of a class. It's just not utilized.
if you're playing a 15-minute game, it's stellar. It's a great
Yeah.
class. 15-minute game.
Also, as long as you're killing people and if you're just getting wounded,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you're just healing. So as long as you have good stick and you can mill through people, it's like, oh well.
That
I
was
get-
that was in the
That's bad.
Barbarian Paragon chat. It's a great pickup class. Like, oh, I didn't bring anything. I've got a sash and like a sword and a shield, or 2 swords. You just go jump in. Like, it's good. Adrenaline is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a great class to him. Like, it's hilarious. At least in that regard. It's
Only class that hasn't been leveled.
I don't know. I'm going to start leveling it now, but like,
it can be fun.
I wonder if, and because all of this, like you said earlier with the whole curse thing, it's all a lot of perception. I wonder if our perceptions of classes are affected by, or as greatly as we think, are affected by the players that play them. Like,
Well, sure. Just the fact that we've talked about Scout is bad or Barbarian is bad, there are enough people who say it that it's basically true, whether it was actually true or not, right? In the same way for saying that Druid is OP or Warrior is OP or whatever, right? We all affect it to some degree by just talking about it and saying it,
yeah, I love data, but I want to see, like, Barbarian is the one that I think of the most, but I think Assassin suffers from it as well. Is some people are like, well, Assassin doesn't do that much besides like go insubstantial. I mean, it's a very large part of your class, but it's not all it does. And if you use the insubstantial state correctly, it's terrifyingly devastating. I mean,
Increased kill potential.
yeah. I mean,
it's
Morty,
such a creative ability. If you're not creative, you're not going to get much out of it. If you
Right.
just think about it as I'm insubstantial.
yeah.
Well, get over that wall, or get around this obstacle, or get over this thing, get yourself in a good position, throw some things, shoot a guy, like, I don't know, kick somebody.
It's Randy is
Maybe not
Mordecai is a perfect example of this. He yells and screams and honks a little bike horn during an entire fight, and there's no way you can ignore him. You know where he's at. That's a huge distraction, and he's insubstantial. Like, half the time, even if I'm playing Bard, I'm like, I've got a release. I don't think it's worth it. Like, he's got 6 per life popping back into insubstantial. I've got releases for days, but he's going to be annoying.
Time on that. Like, right? Like, it's just, I guess I can go and deal with that. And plenty of people do this. You wouldn't be the only one. I'm not the only person to say it or think it. They go, nah.
Yeah.
Just, nope. I'll
And
go
then
somewhere else.
And then he punishes us for it.
Yeah. Then you get killed. You just get killed from behind, and it sucks. It's it's like, damn it. Well, why? It's the bike meme.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, there's an assassin.
Let me just put this stick in my spokes.
wheels.
Like, well, what?
Oh, no.
Why did he do that? What happened?
But it's like, the fact that insubstantial is not you can't see me or can't hear me, it's I'm ghostly.
That's the best change that they could have made to
Yeah,
that, though.
it's perfect. God, like teleport, which was like the only thing back in V7 where you're like, I'm not here.
Not paying attention, you don't know.
And you gotta role play that you don't see the people that are obviously teleporting behind you.
It was just a point of frustration.
Yep.
Yeah.
You just no way to not be frustrated by like, cool, I guess I'm about to die from behind and I have to pretend I don't know. Or then justify that like I heard them crack a stick or something behind me, which is why I
Yeah.
spun around so fast to protect myself. V7 was dumb. So many problems with V7.
I mean,
Some of it was funny, but God.
the ghostly
I
effect
agree with-
is nice.
Yep. It's
I
like, hey,
agree.
look, I'm phased into like a weird reality.
And so,
Anyways,
Yeah.
yeah. Got anything else, man?
do we have any other constructive spicy takes or questions from the audience? No.
On the whole, if I may,
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
thing with Charlie and Lily, the armor situation, I understand 100%. Why you have both your pros and cons. And personally, if I could find some armor that would do the same thing that you said, Lily, I would buy it in a fucking heartbeat.
Right. That turns into
But-
not all armor fit. That's Dizzy's similar issue. Like getting something that fits him or that would work for him is challenging.
And then,
Yeah.
I mean, it's either you have to make it or you have to buy it, and some of those kits are expensive. They are like
I was
$1,000 for the chest piece.
looking at just the Lamellar plates, aluminum, and they're D, and it's for 100 of them. I think it's like $40.
Then you got to put the time into actually like putting the lamellar together and everything else like that.
That's a whole nother ball of wax. How the hell do you do it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's-
Video.
It's tough. It takes a long time. It's like doing chain work. The people who are really good at that, like this meticulous little, I'm like, ugh, not necessarily expensive, but holy cow! And I just worked on some lamellar during COVID here, and I'm like, this
sucks. I agree with you 100%. And I bought some of the plates, and I've got a couple strips that are wide enough for me and that go around me, but it's like the amount of money that's going to take just to get me just the chest piece done up.
Some
is
of it's
outrageous.
a flex for some people though. They're like, let's look at my dollar bills, y'all, as you roll out shiny as shit, looking like
Yeah,
a sick warrior guy shining all over the place, blinding your foes.
Blinding
But,
your
for-
foes.
Hey,
and-
tactical advantage to polished gear.
yeah, agreed.
And it's heat resistant. Flex
Oh,
the
I had
guy.
my brother, my brother Steve, not Steve. His amp card name is Vadin. He had it started out as a flat, like foam amp guard, plank foam shield, similar like how I have a strap shield. But over the years, instead of becoming concave, it became convex.
Okay.
And the thing is that his shield cover was like an extremely like highly reflective shield cover because he wanted it to look metal.
Yeah.
Well, now that that was becoming convex a little bit,
I see where you're going with this.
he had a light beam. So if he was fighting people on a sunny day, he would accidentally and then eventually, sometimes intentionally, go and shine him in the hit people.
I have
He'd
access
only
to
shine people in the face that he knew he could do it to without them getting mad, but it was hilarious.
I have access to a lot of reflective vinyl that I could just do up
Yep.
a whole shield in.
Or even if you were going at that level, you could just make a plastidip shield.
Yeah, I mean,
There's all kinds of fun to be had for sure.
yeah,
Because you could get a really reflective one, and then if you get like a thick enough board and you just like make a nice like little concave thing to do a directional like focused mirror type thing, and then you have like a really nice gloss finish on it. Yeah, you could do really, really disgusting things with that.
Dear God. I mean, do what you want.
I'm-
Make it pretty stuff, but like, that's funny.
Not condoning blinding people with a focused mirror shield.
I just
Never.
I mean, what is it? Archimedes laser? Just call it that, and then just keep going.
And even better, you just get the little tassels on the side of it so that it draws people's attention
Oh my-
to the movement. I mean, I'm not speaking terrible ideas at all.
So, Shion's shield with the tassels. Whenever he does spins and all of that, it's real pretty. It's just annoying.
Oh yeah, very cool.
All right. Do we have any other spicy takes or questions about Assassin? No? All right. Then we're going to end it there. Pre-recorded Merrick is going to roll us out. And thank you all for joining us. And I don't know what the next episode is. I'll let you guys know. This has been another episode of The Paragon Path. If you liked what you heard or saw, please drop us a like and follow on YouTube or Spotify or Google Music or anywhere else that you can find us. We have a Facebook page on The Path that lets you know when we're recording, what you can join into, and what to expect next. We record these episodes live every other weekend on the Kingdom of Polaris Discord. Link is in the comments. If you'd like to learn more, please subscribe, comment, or just drop us a line. As always, happy to see you on the field. See you next time.